You ready?
Okay, I'd like to call to order Lower Saucon Township. Is this on? No. Okay, I'd like to call to order Lower Saucon Township's General Business and Developer Meeting. The time is 6:38. We apologize for the delay because we just met in executive session. So at this time, I'd like to have a roll call.
Ms. DeLeon.
Yes, here.
Mr. Bononis.
Here.
Mr. Caroci.
Here, I was locked out of executive session.
Ms. Cordero.
Here.
Ms. Ray.
Here.
Also in attendance is Brian Cocker, Township Engineer, Steve Gaduzian, Township Solicitor, and Stacy Werkheiser, Administrative Assistant.
Okay, let's all stand, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, can you just clarify for us whether or not anybody was locked out of the executive session, number one, whether you purposely tried to prohibit somebody, and number two, whether or not you heard any knocks or requests to be let in?
Priscilla, have you recognized Victoria to have the floor?
Yes, I am letting her, because I have
Well,
the
she
same
didn't ask to be
question.
recognized.
She didn't ask
to be recognized.
So let's start
Would you
by
ask to be
following.
Let's start with following the rules. The rules
Can I
that
be recognized?
that
Yes, you may
Victoria
be
proposed.
recognized. Thank you.
Kathy, can you, number one, answer the question whether or not you locked the doors or prohibited anybody from entering as an active measure, and number two, whether or not you
Following the agenda.
received a knock or a phone call on the door to be let in during
Phone call on the door,
session.
how does that happen?
I did not hear a knock, and I certainly would open the door if there was one.
Okay, and did you try to lock the doors or prevent anybody from coming in?
No,
Did you see any other council members do that?
No.
Did you see any other staff members do that?
Cross-examination of the township manager, what is this?
Sounds familiar?
Sounds like cross-examination to me.
I know, who knows? Who knows, Steve?
Okay, you finished? Then.
Oh, Steve.
Okay. Okay, at this time then I'd like to go to D. Announcement of an executive session was held prior to this meeting at 6:20 p.m. 3 areas were discussed. They were as follows. 1, discussion took place regarding police employment issues relating to a memorandum of understanding. No official action took place. Number 2, discussion took place regarding open space. No official action took place. This is on the agenda listed as item 4B. And number 3, discussion took place with regard to the Verizon litigation. No official action took place. This is on the agenda listed as item 4E. Moving on to public comment procedures. As you know, we have a public comment procedure, which there's copies on the back door. And please follow them or you'll be called out of order. Next we have number A under developer items. The developer will...
Not number A.
I'm sorry?
You said number A. Usually they're letters are letters.
Excuse me, public.
Numbers are numbers and letters are letters.
Letter A, One More Steel City LLC, 3679 Ode Philadelphia Pike sketch plan. The developer will present a sketch plan with layout options for council review. Is there someone here representing the applicant? Hi. Okay. And what we're going to do is have you tell us about your project, and then we're going to open it up to the solicitor and engineer for their comments, and then it'll go to council questions.
Pardon me, before we do that, just to clarify what we're doing today and what we're not doing today. The applicant is coming before you for a sketch plan. Normally, when a sketch plan is before Township Council, it's not a formal motion that is taken, there's no vote. It's primarily to provide their input as to what they're planning on doing or proposing on doing and getting some feedback from the Township Council as to what the next steps may be. I don't want to speak for the applicant because the applicant is well represented, but I think the concept is they're going to provide us with an option or two for us to review and then to sort of get our feedback.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, so whoever wants to start, just make sure you speak into the mic and identify yourself for the transcriptionist, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. My name is Phil Malich. I'm the Director of Land Development for Tuscas Homes.
and I represent the developer on this project, which is One More Steel City LLC. To my right is Mr. Chris Brown. He's our landscape architect for the project, and to his right is Ms. Kate. I believe you know her, and she is our attorney for this project. And the reason that she's here is because this is all related to a zoning application that was submitted better part of a year ago, and we've since been working behind the scenes with Chris and staff. We've gotten some feedback from the Planning Commission, and that's why we're here tonight, as your solicitor pointed out. We have two sort of options that Chris is going to outlay for you tonight. One of these options is what I would call our preferred option. That requires a certain relief package from the zoning ordinance, which we think is reasonable, and we would like to get your feedback on that. The second option is what we would call a by right option, which we think is less attractive and less beneficial to us and the township. And Chris is going to compare and contrast those for you tonight to hopefully solicit some feedback. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris, and he'll kind of give you a high level. We don't want to take a ton of your time tonight. We know you're very busy, but we want to kind of keep this 40,000 feet so you can get a flavor of what we're trying to accomplish with the project.
All right. Great intro, Phil. Thank you. Again, my name is Chris Brown, a landscape architect and a land planner. I'm doing this for about 30 years. We've got a series of 4 slides I want to share with you tonight. I believe they're the same slides that were in your packet with one additional at the end of the presentation. First, just to acquaint you with the site, obviously you're familiar with its location. This is directly right across the street from the municipal complex. It's a rectangular site area of about 8 acres. It is flanked on the north and the south with existing residential uses, and it is flanked on the eastern boundary with a mix of highway commercial type businesses and land uses that front on 378. The property has a stream that runs from north to south that bisects the property nearly in half. It's almost exactly cut in half by this stream. There's a second stream that comes from the west side from the municipal complex under the roadway. And where these two streams converge, there is a section of wetland that also has sort of evolved over time. And what's important about this is the fact that under township ordinance, these natural features, primarily the creek, the stream, and the wetland, come with protection measures and natural resource preservation guidelines that are in the ordinance. And it's important to note these because the natural resources actually account for 80% of the land area of this site, and 70% of the land area is further protected by those ordinances. So we're really working with 30% of the site for the project that we're proposing tonight. The township ordinances also prescribe a formula that helps us determine what the site capacity is. And that site capacity is based on land area minus these natural resources at their respective protection rates. And what we've been able to determine is that, despite all of these encumbrances, this property can support up to 39 garden apartment units. So that was sort of our marching orders, if you will, from a design standpoint. We've kind of looked at all the constraints associated with this property, and now we turn our sights as to what are the opportunities. And when we do that, we look at the context of a property within the area that we're working. And this being the Village Center zoning district, we think rightfully so. We look up and down Old Philadelphia Pike, and we see a rhythm of existing development that consists of single-family homes, small businesses, a combination of home and business type developments that have developed and occurred over time, right? And that's sort of the traditional village type development that we see in areas not unlike lower Saucon Township throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We take cues from that. We look at the rhythm of the houses and the buildings and the businesses, and we see sort of a pattern. We see a pattern of buildings that are close to the street. We see a pattern of buildings that are oriented with their smaller facades facing the street. So if you imagine a rectangular building, the smaller side of the home or building oriented towards the street. And that's because a lot of the properties were narrow. and to preserve their side yards and utilize the rears of the properties the homes were rotated. We picked up on those cues, and that's something that we felt important to try and incorporate into our design. We can go to the second slide, please. So taking into the consideration the constraints that we have with regard to the environmental areas, we also have setbacks that we have to deal with. To the north end of the site, we have a pretty generous 60-foot side yard setback. To the southern end of the site, we have our riparian buffer setback. That sort of creates our boundaries both north and south of what we have to work with. Then we're also sort of regulated by the front yard setback, which fortunately under the village center zoning district allows us to use the averaging of the front yards of the adjacent properties up and down Old Philadelphia Pike. So we took a look at all the adjacent properties from one intersection to another, came up with an average, and we were able to determine that 18-foot was an appropriate front yard setback using this sort of law of averages. And then at the eastern boundary, back towards the creek, this is sort of our rear setback, if you will, that's imposed by virtue of this buffer requirement to the creek. I don't know if you folks are familiar with the riparian buffer, but what it is really is a dimensional offset from a creek or a stream or any sort of waterway that is prescribed in your ordinance as an area of avoidance. There's a certain amount of disturbance that's allowed. Currently, the property, and within the last about 30 years of available aerial photography, this area is currently mown all the way, mowed grass all the way up to the brush that's adjoining the creek. So this riparian buffer is really sort of a dimensional area. It's not necessarily saying that there's something of particular value there, other than its offset value, offset characteristic. So going back to, we've got our boundaries established by the nature of the setbacks and the environmental restrictions. We look at how we can deploy this 39 unit capacity, design capacity. We can accommodate 39 garden apartment units. How do we break that up and present it in a way that's harmonious with the existing conditions up and down Old Philadelphia Pike? And what we feel works the best is breaking it up into 3 proposed garden apartment buildings. As you see on the plan, they're oriented perpendicular to Old Philadelphia Pike, with the smaller end of the facade of the building, the smaller end of the rectangle facing the road. We believe that this is in keeping with the scale and the nature of the existing development, both up and down both sides of Old Philadelphia Pike, and works with also the slope of the road. As the slope is coming down the road all the way up from the top of the hill, all of the properties sort of terrace down with the topography of the road. So we also feel that breaking up the proposal into 3 buildings with their associated parking adjacent to them sort of allows that continuous rhythm of this terrace development approach to really fit within the township and fit within the village center area. With that comes with some challenges. We're going to talk about the relief in a little bit more detail at the end of my presentation, but to do what we think is right from a design standpoint and fitting in with the village center character of the area, we feel we need 3 driveways. The township put sort of this limit of a maximum of 2 driveways onto a project of this nature. And we also are looking at some potential relief necessary for the rear encroachment of the proposed apartment buildings and parking areas into this offset, the setback area from the stream. One thing before I go to our next slide that I would like to mention about one of the unique things about the property and the fact that the stream bisects the property nearly in half. The area on the backside towards the 378 properties that is a white area, it's not colored on the plan, that's in theory developable land in terms of the land capacity and developable area of the site. It may be hard to get to, but the reason I point it out is because of its location and proximity to the creek and the fact that we can't necessarily get to it, by default then it ends up becoming an extension of the required buffer on the backside of the property. So basically, that 100-foot riparian buffer is going to turn into about a 160-foot buffer because that additional area is going to be undeveloped in perpetuity, and it's going to be basically left to be absorbed into the riparian buffer. So even though we have a minor encroachment on the front side towards the street to fit this development in, we're sort of offsetting almost one for one in terms of the area. Actually, I think we end up with more area being dedicated to permanent preservation in the back than we are suggesting an encroachment in the front. Before I jump to the second option, Phil, is there anything that I missed?
No, I think the only other, again, small detail that is part of our relief package is the offsetting of individual driveways from a project compared to adjacent driveways. And with the there's really two groups of relief here. One group has to do with the relief, and the other has to do with the riparian buffer, as Chris has articulated very well. The center driveway, in addition to being the third driveway, is in close proximity to a very small driveway across the street, and Chris can kind of point that out on the plan. Right. You can see that, you know, to the left of Chris's cursor, there is the first township driveway into your municipal complex. We aligned our driveway directly across the street from that for obvious reasons, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. But that middle driveway is less than the requirement of, I think it's 175 feet, right, between driveways. So,
right.
So, but our driveways maintain that required separation. So if you work your way down the line on our side of the street, although we have 3 driveways instead of the maximum of 2, we do meet those minimum setback criteria in the zoning ordinance. The only driveway, and I believe that we phrase this as a favorable interpretation, you know, with respect to that small driveway across the street, that will be the driveway that is not in compliance with our center driveway on our site. But as Chris mentioned, we feel that the 3 driveway, 3 building alternative here is the more preferred option in keeping with the neighborhood. So that would be the only other thing that I would add as a sort of add on to what you said.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Phil, thanks. And I'll take that one step further and just say that, you know, in addition to garden apartments, there are other uses that would be approved or permitted on this site, and one could be townhomes or single family, which could result in a number of additional driveways. So by comparison, we don't feel like this, you know, this proposal is resulting in something, you know, extraordinary from what would otherwise be probably, you know, considerably more driveways if it were to be cut up into individual buildable lots.
Why would townhouses be more driveways?
Because they could.
No, if you had the townhouses where the buildings were, why would there be more driveways? There's still a driveway in and out, parking in front of the townhouse. Well, why would townhouses be more driveways? You said it would be more driveways.
Yeah, I'll answer your question.
The townhouses were where the apartments are. Why would there be more driveways? So answer that question.
Would you let him answer the question?
He doesn't seem to understand the question.
No, I do. I do understand.
Let's see if you understand.
So I think the townhomes, to be townhomes by definition, need to front on a public street. So if they fronted on a public street, we would put several more than 3 townhomes on this property. There would be, I think, 14 to 16 is what we estimated at one prior iteration of this plan. So those would be linear rectangular lots that would be subdivided out of this 8 acres that would front on Old Philadelphia Pike, and each one of those would be entitled to a driveway.
You have one driveway in, you have parking in front of the townhouse. One driveway in, parking in front of the townhouse. Or 2 driveways in, parking in front of the townhouse.
Well, I think that we would consider that a multifamily building then and not a townhouse. What I'm talking about is fee simple individual lots that front on Old Philadelphia Pike. I understand.
You go in 2 driveways, there's townhouses there. You put them linear, horizontal, whatever. There's parking in front of the townhouse. People walk up to their townhouse.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
That's not this.
I have a question about the driveway issue here.
We're allowed to ask questions.
What you're proposing is 3 driveways. What I don't understand is why there's a need for 3 driveways. If you look at the southernmost building, which is closest to the wetland boundary area, that's this pinkish purplish color, why couldn't you just pivot that building into the parking lot that's the southernmost on Old Philadelphia Pike and then share a common driveway between that building and the middle building? Wouldn't that solve the issue just with regard to the driveways?
It's actually a good segue to the second plan that we have.
Yeah, if we could, can I carry that question into the second plan? I think I have
You
it.
can, and maybe you can tie up another loose end for me as you,
Sure.
as you wrap up your comments on that issue. Mr. Croce brings up a good point with regard to townhouses. Is it your preference to have these garden apartments because it's a recurring source of income? In other words, when you sell a townhouse, you sell it once. When you have a garden apartment, you have recurring income that will continue for as long as there's an occupant of that apartment.
That's really not a question for me, sir.
Who's it for?
Yeah, I guess I would be the one to answer that at the table here. We did look at both options, looking at townhouses and the garden apartments, and my superiors thought that this was a better project for us at the time, so.
Why?
Because
more lucrative.
lucrative.
You make more money.
Well, I don't.
So you're asking for relief here, and the relief you're asking for is simply because you're gonna make more money by the proposal that you have here.
Well,
Okay, talking to the mic.
See the by right plan first.
Kate, you need to talk into the mic.
Let us show you the by right plan, which would allow the garden apartment. So really the exercise we're trying to go to is that we think this design is better than the by right plan. So can we go to the by right plan?
Well, let me, before we go to the by right plan, because that's gonna, be a totally different plan. I have questions about what's being proposed here. So maybe I can address those questions now before you jump onto something else. Is that okay?
Yes, it's
All right,
okay.
thank you.
We're in charge.
Thank you. So you're asking for relief from section 180.95B7B, 180.95B 2E and H. And both of those deal with riparian buffer issues and building and disturbing within the riparian buffer. You are aware that Route 378 has flooded repeatedly in the past 2 years. When there have been major thunderstorms during the summer, there have been flooding issues that have caused Route 378 to be shut down. I don't see how this project addresses that issue that seems to be a recurring and growing problem on Route 378. In fact, I think this worsens it because what you're proposing here is actually disturbing the riparian buffer and building within or around the riparian buffer, which is designed to capture some of this natural runoff that would prevent it from running onto Route 378 and exacerbating the issues that we have.
Right.
So what's your plan for that?
Well, so first of all, I appreciate the question, and I think it's a good one, and I'm glad that you brought it up. As I mentioned, right now, and within the last 30-some years of available aerial photography, this whole area that's called a riparian buffer, at least 90% of it has just been mown grass. So it's really not doing the job of a riparian buffer as they're thought to do, right? Or the reason why we protect them. Currently, it's not really necessarily doing that job. But as part of our proposal here is that riparian buffer will actually become a true riparian buffer because it's going to be part of our stormwater management package. In addition to doing underground stormwater detention, which is regulated and, over my head, to be quite honest, the civil engineers will take care of that part of it, but we're going to have on-site stormwater management. We're going to be restoring and bringing the riparian buffer to an actual capacity to where a riparian buffer actually provides benefit on both the west side, but then increasing the size by 50% on the east side. So I actually think that the end result of this proposal will result in more riparian benefit that I think can be quantified and measured and relayed to your township engineer for confirmation when it's all said and done.
That sounds all well and good, but I'm looking here at the supplemental statement, and it says specifically this: to permit disturbance, grading, building, vegetation removal, traffic, parking, and excavation. That's not riparian buffer creation. You're talking about putting impervious coverage structures here, building, traffic, parking, excavation. So, you bring up a good point as well. and that is, you're a landscape architect, correct? You're not an engineer.
That's correct.
So you're here from a landscape architect perspective and not providing with any sort of engineering perspective on this, correct?
Well, no, I wouldn't agree with that.
Well, you're not an engineer.
I'm not an engineer, you're right.
So, sir, I'm an engineer. I could
Okay.
this, and I would agree with everything that Chris said. What Chris is trying to explain, and I'll say it maybe a little bit differently, is that right now, there's no functional benefit to that buffer because it's just mowed lawn. When we would go through our post-construction stormwater management design.
Hold on, you're saying that grass has no functional benefit to capture water runoff, and grass is equal to or no better than or worse than parking, building, traffic, and excavation? That's what you're telling me from your engineering perspective?
It provides no benefit relative to what it will be when we're finished, which is a planted riparian buffer. So you're not going to have mowed and manicured lawn in that area. You would have planted vegetation, trees, shrubs, facultative species that would continue to flourish after we are done. So the water quality benefit of, first of all, there's no storage benefit to the riparian buffer. It's really a water quality benefit. So we would have on-site stormwater management facilities, most likely underground facilities, to avoid any further disturbance to that physical offset that Chris explained. But the water quality benefit that we would get by planting that buffer is going to exceed what is out there today. So, you know, if 378 floods, which to Chris's other point, you know, we're going to be providing a greater offset in terms of that riparian buffer than what is currently required by the ordinance in the direction that you've indicated is a concern, which is the 378 corridor. So the 378 corridor here is at the lower part of the screen. So we're going to be providing an additional 50 to 60% effectively of what is required by the township ordinance in terms of a permanently protected feature. So right now, you're not getting a volume benefit. We are under a responsibility to offset any impervious cover, buildings, pavements, or anything like that, regardless of this relief or not is granted by the township. We have to offset all of that impervious cover with our post-construction stormwater management design.
Why do you need 39 units? Why couldn't you make something smaller if that's what the goal is, to actually improve the water flow, riparian issues, and capturing the water? Why couldn't you go with a smaller project?
Good question. So I think the density, like if we don't have all of these environmental features and offsets, which are not features themselves, they're bolted on to the features from the ordinance, the 50-foot wetland buffer, the 100-foot stream buffer. What you're looking at on the screen here in terms of actual resources is the pink, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, it's the pink and the blue. So anything that is shaded in some level of green is part of this offset mechanism of the buffers. So if you just look at the area of our site and what's allowed by zoning, Chris, you know off the top of your head, what's our density is not 39 units. It's I think over 100 units. We have to, the 39 units is the end result of working through the calculations that the township's ordinance requires in terms of backing out the environmental resources as well as backing out the buffer areas in certain percentages to get to that net density. So the ordinance kind of does that for us. The ordinance says that 39 units of density is appropriate for the site that has this level of environmental features on it.
Well, if I understand your statement correctly, you're looking for variances from at least 3 separate township ordinances, right? So it's not that easy. You're suggesting that you're complying with everything, but you're not. You need relief to do what you're proposing.
No, your question was with respect to the density. And so the density, whether we get the relief or not, the density is what is respective of the environmental features on the site.
I don't think you understood what my statement was. So what I'm saying is you could have an alternate plan, which I'm sure we're going to hear about, where you don't have to get the variances, and you can do something as a matter of right, is what I'm suggesting here. But instead, what you're proposing is 39 units that you're going to need variances for, that is going to exacerbate water issues in my mind at least, and I'm certainly not a stormwater management expert, but in my mind, I can't imagine constructing buildings like this with multiple parking lots, 3 driveways, and everything else is going to improve that situation. I just don't believe, I don't see that.
I think you need to see the next plan, which is 39 units.
Yep.
By right.
Let's see it.
Well,
I just want to respectfully say I do have questions, but I would like to just hear the whole proposal.
Right, well, that's what the
before
goal was, but.
I don't.
Ask questions.
I have questions. So, you know, the water runs down towards Black River and 378 there. And the actual a stream runs under a building down there on the corner of 378 and Black River Road. And, you know, you're putting these buildings and parking lots up. I mean, how's that possibly gonna make that any more better than, it's a pretty bad situation as it is. And I don't understand by, you know, you have grass here right now, you soil, grass and soil, the water goes in there. How is this gonna make this any better down there at that intersection? I mean, it's not. I mean, how's it not gonna make it worse, I guess?
Well, it's a fair question, and the honest response is, it probably won't make it better. It's not really the township's ordinances mechanically to say it's going to make it better.
Right.
You know, our standard that's handed down through the ordinances and DEP and all these other agencies is that we don't make it worse.
Right.
So we will be looking, now.
Well, how does it not make it worse then?
I do think that the township engineer, you know, through the township stormwater management ordinance in Act 167, you know, does identify if there are areas of regional stormwater issues that, you know, that's kind of fair game to look at as part of a land development application. This is sort of the first stop on this whole train, which is zoning. You know, we haven't gotten into detailed site design and all these other things. I don't have to explain all that to you folks, but we may have to tweak things. We may have to go overboard with our stormwater management design in one aspect to offset some negative occurrence over here. That's perfectly within the realm of possibility when we get into that level of site design. So, but the standard will be, it's not to make it better, you know, down the stream. It's to say we're not going to be sending any more water out the left-hand side of this page, in theory, than what goes there now. And our responsibility.
How can you say that when you're replacing grass and field? I didn't ask you, I'm asking him, the engineer. I didn't ask you, I'm asking him, the engineer. I didn't ask you.
Oh my God, would you please be polite? You're so rude.
So can you please explain to me, you know, you're replacing the grass field basically right now with buildings and a parking lot. And, you know, so how would it not make it worse? I don't understand.
Fair question. In part, if you look very closely at Chris's plan, it's tough to see, but there are dashed lines inside of these parking lots, okay? They're rectangles.
Right.
We are really trying to avoid any, what we would consider unnecessary disturbance into these buffer areas. So the plan, as we sit here, is that we would have underground detention basins outside of those buffers, underneath our parking lots, to collect the parking lot runoff, as well as roof leader connections from the apartment buildings themselves. So those basins would all function independently, but also as part of our entire post-construction stormwater management plan to make sure that we're meeting all of the water quality, volume reduction, and rate reduction requirements that the township, the county, and the state they hand to us. We have no choice but to abide by.
So you're gonna put it underground?
We would have underground detention system, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I would just remind Priscilla, I know that August 21st was a long time ago. It was a grand total of 12 days ago.
Right.
This is the township's ordinance that was enacted. This is the resolution 64-2024 with regard to the policy and code of conduct for township council meetings. Number 11, comments should be substantive and not include any defamatory content, foul or vulgar language or gestures and or personal attacks on others, including any council person, employee of Lower Saucon Township, members of the audience, or any other person, whether or not present. And in fact, it's signed by her, Priscilla De Leon, council president. So I would encourage her to abide by the rules that she signed when she attacks Mr. Carochi and calls him so rude.
Yes.
Okay, can we continue with the meeting?
If you would conduct the meeting appropriately and conduct yourselves appropriately,
Well, you're
we
gonna
can.
have comments no matter what, so I'm just going on.
No, you personally attacked him. We're not gonna gloss over this. Follow your own rules, okay?
Apology would be nice.
Follow the rules.
Follow the rules.
Would you continue with your presentation, please?
We go to the next slide, please.
All right, so we purposely brought this along because we wanted to show you that we believe we can, in fact, accomplish a 39-unit garden apartment project without any relief. And, you know, the reason why I spent so much time, and I apologize, you know, if it got long, but talking about the reason why we felt the 3 buildings were important is for this contrasting reason. You know, to make 38 or 39 units fit on this property, or any variation of that, quite frankly, you know, is going to, and to not require any relief, we're gonna have to break this into two or perhaps even one building running parallel with Old Philadelphia Pike and have two much larger parking areas. We don't feel like this is the best aesthetic for the township. It doesn't get us any more units than the 3 individual buildings. This is not, it's actually probably more cost effective for us to build 2 buildings as opposed to building 3. So this is not for our gain. You know, this is not for anything other than what we truly believe to be a better design, a better product, a better development that's immediately adjacent to your incredible township municipal complex. We find, you know, that this is a great responsibility of ours to get this design right. And by contrast, by comparison, we don't feel like 2 parallel buildings to Old Philadelphia Pike are gonna do the same job and the same sensitivity and character that our 3-building proposal does. This is not about gain on our end. This is probably easier, less hoops, less hurdles. But quite frankly, we feel like the 3-building is a better final outcome for the township.
Let me ask you a question about that. You had mentioned earlier in your comments that you look at the rhythm of development. That was your word, rhythm. I'm not exactly sure what rhythm means in terms of landscape architecture, what's before us here, but it sounds to me like a touchy-feely word to make everybody feel comfortable with something that's going to be proposed, that's going to be disruptive and change the character of the neighborhood. So what rhythm in and along Old Philadelphia Pike is consistent with a 3-apartment building project or a 2-apartment building project? I'm not aware of any other apartment buildings anywhere along Old Philadelphia Pike of this nature or along Route 378 of this nature. So therefore, I don't know of any rhythm that this would be consistent with.
Okay, well, let me try and explain. The rhythm that I talk about has more to do with size and scale, massing and orientation of buildings, right? So right now we have a combination and quite a variety of single-family homes, small businesses, barns, garages, outbuildings, auto body shops, you know, the bar and club up the street. We've got a lot of variety, right? The rhythm that I talk about is relative to the size, scale, and massing as it relates to the street frontage. Most of these buildings have a narrower frontage. Most of the existing buildings, I should say, on the road today have a narrower frontage with respect to the way that they interact with Old Philadelphia Pike. And that's the main contrast, sir, to be honest, with this concept and our preferred concept, is by rotating the buildings, we feel like we're doing a disservice by elongating that interaction between our buildings and the road. And I would agree, this particular scheme does not fit. It does not complement the rhythm the way that we think this project should. And by having them turned and perpendicular, the 3 buildings to Old Philadelphia Pike, we believe that that is more harmonious with the rhythm and the repetition of variety on this street.
This plan, it's detailed, correct?
It is.
So you could determine for me very quickly the length of building 1 and 2 that's in the 2-unit proposal, as well as the length of the buildings that are along the frontage for the 3-building proposal, correct?
I believe they're the same, sir.
You went the length this way.
I want the linear length along the road frontage.
So he went along.
Not the depth of the building, but the frontage.
He went along the road frontage.
Along the
not
road
the-
frontage.
Yeah, each building is 120 feet long.
And that's in the 2-building proposal.
The long length of the building,
The 2-building proposal, not the 3-building proposal. What's currently up there now?
the long leg of those buildings facing the road is 120 feet.
All right. What's the length of those for the 3-building proposal?
This part,
The short part?
yes.
Short part that abuts the roadway.
70 feet.
Thank you.
One thing that I would note with respect to the buildings, we haven't talked about it because we've been talking about the site features. If you're familiar with the garden apartment standards in your ordinance, these buildings will not be boxes, okay? There are numerous architectural standards that exist in your zoning ordinance, which we would need to go through as part of getting that use approved. And so these would be, Chris, you could explain it better than me, I'm gonna butcher it, but these will be architecturally styled and detailed buildings, roof peaks, different facade treatments, and so on. So they're not gonna be uniform boxes in either proposal. They're not allowed to be that under your garden apartment regulations.
Right.
I have some questions, unless there's more to the
I have one, let me just give you one final page and then we can bounce back to wherever you would like to be for your questions. If we could go to the final page. I just want to put in perspective for everyone in terms of the relief with the 3-building option. There's 3 things outlined in yellow on here. The one irregular shaped outline, the dash.
Is this the slide that you're saying that was not originally a part of our packet?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I brought this for tonight. So this irregular scalloped outline with the dashed line that's highlighted in yellow, that's the encroachment into the riparian buffer, okay? We're allowed to encroach 15% into the riparian buffer. What we're showing here right now is like 15.9%. So we're showing about 1,000 more square feet of disturbance, and I think our relief is asking for a little bit extra flexibility because there's going to be, some evolution of our stormwater design. So I just wanted to put that in perspective. The dark yellow in the back, here in the parking lot, this portion of the building, this portion of parking, that's the permanent encroachment. So it's taking place and is proposed within an area that's allowed already to be disturbed, but it's proposed to be a permanent encroachment in the riparian buffer. That equates to about 8,000 square feet, just to kind of put things into perspective. And then finally, the last piece is this center driveway, asking for relief to have 3 driveways as opposed to 2. One thing I didn't mention, but I'll point out here on this plan, if we didn't have this center driveway and we wanted to keep, we all felt or maybe agreed that this was a good design otherwise, if we connected one of these driveways in the back, so that the parking lots had access, we believe that it would be, result in potentially more encroachment into these sensitive areas and potentially more relief that we need. We feel the relief on the driveway is better to ask for than for any additional relief in the environmental stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to share this. Happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to sort of highlight what the impact was at the end of the day with the 3-building proposal.
Understand the configuration of these. Let's start with the 3-building units, the 13 units in each one. Is it a 3-story building?
So I was figuring you were going to ask me this. So the 3 buildings would be more of a 2 to 2.5 stories. So these actually work to where the majority of the units would be distributed amongst 2 floors, with the potential for either lofts or small studios in more of an attic-type dormer configuration, so not a full 3rd floor. The 2-building version would have to utilize all 3 floors and get really creative with mansard roofs and other false peaks and things to accomplish the architectural guidelines of the village center, but be able to maximize the unit count on the 3 floors.
So is it your expectation that each floor would have 6 units or something less?
Probably somewhere in that vicinity. We don't have an architectural plan yet. This is based on square footage allowances from our allied consultants.
And on each floor, would each unit have essentially a slice of the building, or would the units be backed up to one another? In other words, is there a common hallway where there would be an apartment on one side and an apartment on the other side?
I don't know that we know that just yet. I think some of the unique things about these style apartments is that the first floors could be accessible, from the exterior, and maybe the second floor
On both
has a
sides or
hallway.
one side?
Yeah, potentially it could be both sides.
I guess my question gets to this. In a building that's configured with 13 units, such as what's proposed here, versus a building that's configured with 19 or 20 units on the alternate plan, is the 13-unit building more appealing and marketable? In other words, do people aspire to or are more likely to rent a smaller building as opposed to a larger building?
I really don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. If you don't know the answer to that, then I'm a bit confused then as to why you're proposing 3 buildings instead of 2, other than your suggestion that it's in keeping with the configuration of the neighborhood.
That's entirely it, sir.
Okay. Okay.
The parking lots, if you look at the 2 different plans, and add them up, have you done that, like what the square footages for both?
I think both plans do have a cumulative impervious cover calculation on them. It would probably be inclusive of all impervious cover, though.
I guess when I'm looking at the plans, to me, the 3 units with the smaller parking lots, to me, would look better than the 2 buildings with the larger parking lots on the side. To me, this isn't a commercial site with storefronts, this is a living space. And like you said, it would blend in with the residential frontage of the homes and, it's already out on Old Philadelphia Pike.
Right.
But I don't know, that's why I don't know what the numbers are. But to me, that, the huge parking lots compared to those smaller.
Did you see the numbers, Chris? 'Cause
Yeah.
we can give, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you can tell them.
So surprisingly, the 2-unit, the 2-building configuration, although it looks like more, is a slight reduction by comparison. Yeah, surprisingly.
Surprising, yeah.
But I think that speaks volumes though too. Phil's already talked about, no matter if one's double than the other, we have an obligation to manage the stormwater responsibly and by state, local, and county codes. But I think what your observation is very interesting though, because I think even though the 3-unit building looks less, or I should say, even though it is more, but looks less, that's the whole idea. We want this project to feel smaller, right? We want it to feel smaller. And I feel like we can do a lot better job with the 3-unit, with the 3-building design, even in terms of buffering those parking lots. We've got a 25-foot required, driveway coming into the parking lots. We can landscape on both sides of that driveway and virtually hide the entire parking lot. It's a lot like the driveways going back to some of these homes and small businesses. You see this driveway go back, but you don't know what's going on back there, but it opens up and they got a barn or they got a garage or they've run in a business. It's the same kind of flavor that we can get with these more compact situations than with the more monolithic parking lot. And
the plans say propose sidewalks. Are you definitely putting sidewalks like to connect to the 2 or 3 buildings, whatever you come up with?
So that came up with the planning commission as well, and I think we had some lengthy conversations about how we certainly want to dedicate the right-of-way for it. We want to grade and prepare the site for it. It's up to the township as to whether it makes sense to put it in now or later, or when it makes, putting sidewalks to nowhere sometimes feels a little weird, and it could be a situation where us as the developer can be like, when it makes sense or when there's something to connect to, we'll gladly put it in, but until then, we'll dedicate the area, we'll grade it and prepare it for you, or we'll certainly put them in if that's if that's what the township's desire is.
Well, I'm just thinking, if I lived in one of the 2 or 3 buildings, and I had a friend in one of the other buildings, how am I gonna get there?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So am I gonna have to go through the grass, or am I gonna have to?
No, that's a great point, yeah. For that reason alone, it would make a lot of sense to do it now as opposed to later. We can also look at interconnective walkways between the buildings. There might be some common area, perhaps in one of the buildings, who knows, that we would want to have additional pedestrian circulation to accommodate. We haven't gotten that far at the design.
I appreciate that you named this One More Steel City. It sounds like Priscilla may be one of your first residents wanting to move in and hang out with her friends. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to have this have a smaller kind of feel to it. But the reality of it is that it will not necessarily be small in terms of the number of people that will live there. You've got 39 units, and I guess I'm looking at this from the perspective of our school district. And I'm not on the school board. I don't know if you've had conversations with the school board or anybody on behalf of the school, but this type of development has the potential to attract individuals who are aspiring to come to the Saucon Valley School District, which is one of the top school districts in the Lehigh Valley. And you know, if you were to average, let's just say there's 2.5 children per unit, that's 100 students that you're adding to the school district. I don't know if the tax revenue that you're going to generate from these garden apartments are going to offset the cost of housing and educating and providing teachers and everyone else and all the other needs that 100 additional students potentially would have. Can you speak to that at all?
It doesn't even come close.
I know. I know it doesn't, but I'm asking you for their words.
But the use itself is permitted by right.
understand that.
You're talking the mic.
It's permitted. I'm asking you to address my question and my concern, which is there's a potential of a large number of students moving into these garden apartments for their educational years to utilize the school district to create a burden there that's going to create a tax burden for the rest of the residents of this township that already pay high taxes for the school. They've already indicated that they're going to be increasing taxes this year, and the school board has I believe a stated intent to desensitize the public to small incremental tax increases. And this, I think, will only help to accelerate that. So the concern I have is, you know, what sort of ratables are you expecting out of this? And what sort of demographics are you expecting to be in these apartments?
Yeah, a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I'll do my best to provide a response to you. I don't really see, usually when we're building these types of small apartment buildings, they're 1, possibly 2-bedroom apartments, studios, as Chris mentioned. They're generally not the type of product where you would see 2-child households. That's, I think, a rarity. I certainly can't say that there will be no children that would be moving into these when they would be constructed, but it's definitely in the minority as opposed to who I would typically think would be using this product, which would be younger professionals, maybe retired people. It wouldn't be a heavy child environment. I just don't see that with our other products where we have them constructed.
So going back to my original question, have you had discussions with anybody from the Saucon Valley School District on the effect of this?
They would.
No, we have not, but certainly anytime that we will get into a land development project, whether it's this type of a job or any job, I'm sure the Township Planning Commission, the engineer, would expect us to coordinate with the school district, even just from a simple standpoint of if there needs to be a bus stop, you know, anywhere near the site. So that's something that we absolutely will have to navigate as we will get into land development.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask some questions?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. As I look at the 3-building option, I saw that, you know, there's the area colored in yellow, which I understand is the 50-foot wetland buffer area. And I saw that, like, the one parking lot encroached on that yellow area in the 3-building option. And then it looks like in the 2-building option, you have the same situation there, and you kind of reconfigured that parking lot to avoid that, as what it looked like, that little jet out. And this kind of leads into a thought I had about the parking lot issue in general is, maybe Brian can answer this. What is the maximum story permitted in this zone?
You mean for the buildings?
Yes.
3.
And does that include any structures that would be built underground?
there's a definition of how you measure the building height with respect to how the ground goes along the wall. So I can't answer that without knowing the architectural facade and their final grading, but the ordinance does provide for a way to measure that.
Okay, and I guess where I'm going with this is I see in a lot of places between here and Philadelphia where they put really beautiful garden apartments, a lot of times they have underground parking as an option. And looking at your plan, I was concerned to see the encroachment onto the various sensitive environmental features. And then I saw, you know, your second option, which has less encroachment, but larger parking lots. So have you guys thought of or looked at the idea of adding some underground parking feature for the residents?
We have not, and the reason is pretty simple. One is that the parking that is shown on this plan meets the requirements of your ordinance, but we also think that that's a pretty healthy allotment because your ordinance, I don't think, is respective of the number of bedrooms in a unit.
Right, it's just, yeah.
It's just 2 spaces per unit. So whether we have a 1-bedroom unit, a studio, or a 2-bedroom, we have to provide 2 spaces per unit. So that is, I would say, on the higher side of what's typically required for like a use of this nature, if you would look at other ordinances, and that's not a bad thing, it's just, it is what it is. We feel like that's on the conservative side, but both plans show the required number of parking that we need for 39 units.
Which
Okay.
is roughly 80
So,
spots.
I guess I'm
Yes.
I'm reading between the lines is because this, you are permitted to put a grade level parking area, and that is likely probably less expensive than putting an underground.
Oh, absolutely. I the last time that I looked into it, parking garages are about 30 grand a space. That was a couple of years ago. It's probably more than that now. But there's another reason, and it's that we need the parking lots for our stormwater management. So, you know, our entire stormwater management plan as we sit here, which is very, very early in this stage of design, is that we will be utilizing the area under those parking lots for stormwater management.
Okay, and I just want to make sure I understood the comments correctly. You were indicating on project number 2, or site plan number 2, that the area shaded in the green hatch, I don't want to call it the green hatch, it kind of looks like hashing, that our ordinance permits a 15% encroachment in that area. Brian, is that accurate?
Yeah, the ordinance allows encroachment into almost all of your natural resource areas, except for floodplains, the wetlands themselves, lakes, things like that. But these buffers, which are just dimensional buffers that are added, they are allowed to disturb into those buffers.
Okay, I don't know if you have a plan that shows the delineation, like a line delineation of where the permitted encroachment line would be versus the encroachment 15.9% that you're requesting. I don't know if your plot plan number 2 shows that, like, so we could see, okay, this is where you could get under our ordinance, and then this is what we're requesting as relief.
Right, I think I understand your question. So with option 2, there is no relief, right? So the 2 building option, everything falls on those imaginary offsets, right? So,
Right, yeah, I saw that.
Yep.
But I meant page 2, where you had the 3 building options. Sorry, I said 2, I was talking
Yeah,
about.
so if you go back to the last slide, Stacey,
Yeah.
the very last slide again, if we look at that, ma'am, the top edge of this dashed line that's highlighted in yellow, that is the line. It combines over here with wetland and riparian, but they form the same line because the wetland trumps the riparian over here. But this is sort of the boundary of the riparian buffer. And we're allowed to encroach into that boundary 15%. It doesn't, this is sort of, kind of rather evenly dispersed as opposed to, we really could take one big deep, dip out of it, but this is, again, trying to be as sensitive as we can. But this whole area outlined in the dashed line highlighted in yellow, like I said, it represents 15.9%. So we're allowed almost all of this. In terms of encroachment, not permanent, but in terms of encroachment, we're almost allowed all of this, minus 1,000 square feet. So,
Yeah, I guess I was just, it would be helpful for me to see like visually where the permitted encroachment line would be versus the requested relief line, just so it kind of, that's in my mind, like that's where I'm going with it. I do agree that the flow of Old Philadelphia Pike is such that the 3 building option would be aesthetically more in line with what's there. My only other concern would be, I mean, clearly we have tremendous facilities here on our township building, and we have nice park system, walking trails, the whole 9 yards. And so I would anticipate that there would be a number of people in those apartments that would pick that location so they could take advantage of our facilities, which of course we want residents of our township to do that. But I would be concerned about the crossing on Old Philly Pike. I know there's like some traffic, and I don't know, and that's a state road, I think, or so 3.
yeah, it's a township.
So if it's anyway, either way, it's a question for me, like how we would handle pedestrian traffic that would want to cross on a regular basis to get to the township facilities across the road. Just knowing, and I think that the sidewalk thing would kind of, I agree with, just for people going back and forth between the buildings, and then, you know, likely needing to wait or, you know, figure out how they're going to cross the road. That would be something I would be looking at.
We probably would envision that definitely coming up if we got to land development, because a lot of times that, you know, like they might say they want you to put some kind of crosswalk, or they want you to designate a certain area for the people to go across, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Society Hill, like when down by.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing, I like the less parking entrances, the idea of less driveways onto Old Philly Pike, because again, with the traffic, you know, I've been there at the Water Authority in different places, and, you know, 3 stacked driveways where people are gonna be trying to get in and out. There's some blind spots, whatever, like it would be safety-wise, I think, more beneficial to have 2 driveways versus 3. So that's if there's a way to blend your two proposals into one that reduces the number of driveways.
Yeah. We were actually just talking before the meeting and trying to get our head around, you know, everything we wanted to condense for you. When we originally submitted the sketch plan to the Planning Commission, again, this was end of last summer, so basically a year ago, we actually had 4 driveways. And this was one of the things that we identified with the Planning Commission very early on. We talked a lot about it. We then went and looked at the by right option with the 2 driveways, and we ended up with 3. That's, I guess, part coincidence, part, again, as we've tried to articulate, we think that that is really the kind of the meshing of all of the good ideas here. And we think it is manageable. That doesn't mean that we can skirt site distance lines or site triangle. You know, we have to make sure we handle all of that when we get into land development with the township engineer.
Another question, which is just for my benefit, the circles that are shown around each of the buildings and the parking lots, what is the definition of those circles? What are they? I just couldn't find it on the legend.
Yeah, sorry, that's just a representation of proposed trees.
Trees.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you thinking like evergreen style landscaping, or have you gotten that far into your, because this is a sketch, I know.
Yeah, we're really not that far. Yeah, those particular symbols represent, you know, like a shade tree. We like to shade the parking lots and do all the thermal reduction that we can do there. But there would be more sort of evergreen type stuff around the perimeters. I think we're required some buffers, and we would want to screen the parking from Old Philadelphia Pike. So in terms of our future landscape plan, there would be ample to provide the right type of screening and buffering.
Yeah, because you see there's a bunch of the street along the street as well as within the parking.
Mm-hmm. And Brian, can you just give me a quick rundown of what are the permitted by right uses for this lot?
I don't have that.
Just like,
yeah, I don't.
you know, like, is it a
open.
mix of like commercial and residential uses?
Yeah, the VC zone allows for a pretty good mix of uses.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the two options that you provided. I think, like I said, it's kind of like a mix for me. I like the look of the three, but I am concerned about that encroachment. So I would love to see something that details that, but, that's pretty much,
Can I add something to, you know, as you were talking about this, I'm looking at the furthest southern parking lot in both schemes, and you've got me wondering if we can't incorporate that alternative layout from the two-building configuration into the three-building at that end, and we might be able to eliminate that wetland buffer encroachment. That you're most, I think you're most concerned about that wetland buffer.
I mean, yeah, because from what I'm looking at, the legend here, it looks like the yellow section is the wetland encroachment and the other one is the required riparian buffer.
Right. I think there's a chance, just looking at these plans, that I think we can cut and paste that corner there, and we might be able to get out of that wetland. Just, you inspired me to sort of visualize that with your question. So there's a possibility we could improve that further. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I would be happy to see you come back with just the delineation, and I don't know how that impacts their encroachment, like if that percentage, that if you did what you just said, that you were thinking of, the creative thinking there, if that would change the percentages, but that would be, if you could remove any encroachment on the wetland, I think that would be from my perspective, preferred.
It would be less percentage.
Yeah,
If he could do it, it would be
It would even
less.
reduce it further from the
think-
15.9.
And I don't wanna speak out of turn, but Chris, what we're over here in terms of this 15% to the discussion, we're at 15.6. We asked for a little bit more just to give us some room for, stormwater pipes and things like that. But on the plan, we're about 1,300 square feet over the number that you said. So, an average parking space is around 200 square feet, 10 by 20, give or take, okay? So if you look at the plan, particularly the middle parking lot that has the yellow shading on it, it's 6 spaces. If you wanna know how much are we really over on the plan, I think that's what you're asking. Like what, we show the impact in the yellow, but how much are we really over that 15%?
Right.
And if you look at 6 spaces, that's the amount of space that we're actually talking about in terms of all of that disturbance.
Right, okay. And then the other thing, brought me back to that whole two parking spot per unit, and, clearly like a studio apartment would be envisioning, somebody who's single, not necessarily having 2 vehicles there. I mean, I might be open to the idea of requesting relief to the parking to satisfy, like, however many units you have for studio and 1 bedroom, having 1 space.
Sure.
Because for me, I don't know what the other rest of council thinks, but from my perspective, a studio apartment with 2 permitted spots is kind of like overkill. Like places I've been where we have like garden apartments, I've lived in them myself, like you get 1 spot.
Because you don't have any friends that come visit you.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you need a guest parking
Company.
spot.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a guest spot location, like where they have like for guest parking. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Friends that like to visit me.
Obviously.
Thank you, Tom.
I know.
What you're saying,
when you
I
go to-
understand what
But
you're saying.
you could just designate an area for like guests of the residents. It would still be, maybe, I don't know what your configuration of studios 1 and 2 was, but you could still have an allotment for guest use aside from the, automatic space allotment per unit. So I don't know what that calculation comes out to, but I'd be interested to see it.
I understand what you're saying, yeah, that you might favor a parking variance space-wise as compared to an encroachment variance relief, is what you're saying.
Yeah. If you're talking 6 spots total, to me, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and again, just my explanation of that was was to give you an idea of how much are we talking about, that we're over that 15%.
Right.
Regardless of if we have 1 parking space or 10 parking spaces, on the inside of Chris's little bubble there in the yellow, that's a variance in your ordinance. We can't have 1. You know?
Right.
So we're still gonna have parking, we would still need that variance no matter what. But in terms of how much are we over that 15%, it's the equivalent of roughly 6 parking spaces, of disturbance in that area.
Okay.
Right, but you weren't talking parking spaces per se, you were just using the area as an
Give you
example.
something simple to
Right,
think
because
about.
Perspective.
I would be, I know when I go to Society Hill and I go to visit somebody over there, I'm always looking for the guest parking space,
Gotcha.
and they're not a lot, and that always drove me nuts, so, drives me nuts.
I think Phil was using it more so Victoria could visualize more as opposed to remove. I think if that helped, try to visualize it. But I understand what you're saying.
What I visualize is not enough parking spaces and people are parking over here at the township building because you don't have enough guest parking over there because they want to cut it already. Whatever.
Mr. Brown, you're pretty good with that ruler. With regard to proposal that has the 3 buildings, my understanding is the entire lot is about 8 acres, a little bit over 8 acres, right?
Right.
How many acres is the proposed development? The actual buildings, parking lots, and earth disturbance that's depicted here in this plan? Roughly. I'm not holding you to an exact number, but roughly.
Do the math for you if you tell me the numbers.
Yeah, let's go 180 by 650.
It's about 2.7 acres.
And how about on the plan that has the 2 buildings?
.2 acres.
Okay. So somewhere between 2 and 3 acres for either plan. Kathy, how much money do we have, does the township have in reserves?
Probably around 9 million.
9 million. So I'm going to put something out there, and this is just my comment. If we had a forward-looking township council, looking at the facilities that we have here and the geographic footprint that we have here on this side of the street, and again, we don't have a forward-looking majority on this council, but if we did, I would think that they would be engaging in discussions with the property owner about acquiring this parcel before it gets developed to add on to the township's roles so that there's opportunity for expansion if and when needed, and finding out if it's a property that's available to purchase. We certainly have the money to purchase it. It would alleviate a lot of problems, and it would plan for the future. It would provide a reserve of land that we currently do not have, or even discuss the possibility of eminent domain to serve a township purpose. But we don't have a forward-looking township council. But I'm just putting that out there, that for any residents that may not be happy about this project, that they consider calling the majority of this council and expressing to them their concerns, and certainly the financial wherewithal that this township has to accomplish a few things. One, to not allow this proposal to move forward, but also to add to the space that the township owns, anticipating that there may be a need in the future for a facility or land greater than what is currently on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Can I
I
just ask
wanna-
a question of the developers? Did you indicate that you were before the planning commission? And when were you before our planning commission? What were the dates? This year or last
It
year?
was last
July.
last year.
So it was last July, and you said you've been working on this for like at least over a year, is that right?
Yes.
So I think the better question would be is, since this project was before our township for at least the last year, maybe longer, and before our planning commission last year, the forward-thinking council last year had opportunities then and didn't take advantage of them. I'm sitting here as a council person sworn in January 2nd. I don't have any control over what happened last year before planning or any other times, but the residents should be aware that this project has been before our township for over a year now, and the forward-thinking council that we had last year didn't act on it.
All right, so
Thank you.
First of all, my comments are, I agree with Jason. It's my understanding this property was purchased for $500,000. We should have done that with open space funds. Should still be done with open space funds. Do it eminent domain open space. But the traffic signal up there by Yanni's and the traffic signal down here by Black River and 378, it's not enough for at least 80, if not more cars on a daily basis to be in and out of there. And Old Philadelphia Pike, it really isn't meant for that additional traffic either. So it's been a great property to either expand our township park that's right here, or even for a maintenance building. You know, the maintenance building over here is, you know, dated to say the least, and it would be a great thing. And you can say, all right, you know, that wasn't done then, but it can still be done now. There's no time limit on this. It can still be done now. There's not a time limit until something is built. As far as the school, it's a disaster for the schools. There was a morning call article about, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and they gave how much it costs different school districts to educate a child. Saucon Valley was about $25,000 a child. If you have 25 kids in there, that's $625,000 a year. And there is no way the property taxes on these units will be $600,000 a year, anywhere close to that. It is a loss for the school district, a big loss. You know, and I haven't heard anything about, you know, any contributions to the school district, so there's a problem. I think I'd love to see our police chief weigh in on this too, and what type of issues this type of housing brings in to the township. And the yellow here is also not just in the parking, it's actually where the buildings are. Right, so it's actually where the buildings are. So there is an encroachment. I find it strange, well, we'll wait to hear if Ms. Ray in EAC has anything to say about this, or she's just gonna follow the party line apparently. She's an environmentalist until she's not. She's an environmentalist until she's not. Until she's not. Plastic bag ban, except when she buys her crab legs at Giant.
Okay, that has nothing to do with this, so I will take my turn.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Please don't interrupt me.
You've had several turns.
Please don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me. But I'm not done. I may have had several turns, but I'm not done. Yeah, so you know, I think this is a disastrous project for this part of the township. I think it's terrible for the school district. I think it's terrible for the road. And again, I'd like to hear the Chief Barnett weigh in just from a policing point of view, what this would be. Obviously, the police station is close by, but it's adding a lot more residents. I think you're talking easily an 80 to 100 more residents, at least living in these so-called garden apartments, projects, you know, whatever. But I personally think it's a terrible idea. I'll finish, Ms. Ray.
Okay, Laura? Yes, so first I will say I do remember this coming to council last year. I don't believe it ever came to the EAC to look at, to provide any input. It's not here. So it would be nice if EAC did get a chance to review these plans. Sounds like they might be going around another round. So I did have a question then. You made a comment when you were referring to the riparian buffer on the side towards 378, as you said it would be permanently protected feature. How would it be permanently protected?
Well, it could be a number of ways. It's going to be permanently protected, I guess, by default, because it's more or less an inaccessible, undevelopable portion of the property, right?
I know how that goes, so it's not really permanently protected. I just
But it-
wondered if you were offering up to put an easement on,
It certainly could.
Well, yeah,
We'd do
that's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
like a real easement, yes, okay. I didn't see that in the writing. Yes, definitely the biggest concern is the wetland boundary, that area in pink on the south end of the property. Definitely want to stay as far away from that as you can, because it is very important. It is a shame that it is mowed all the way up to the waterway, because that's not the proper way to handle the riparian buffers. Personally, I think that the two building design would be my preference, the two driveways, the two buildings, and kind of keeping it more out of the buffered area, just my personal preference. I think the township lacks this type of housing. Actually, I don't know a whole lot of garden or any sort of apartments around. There's not too many. And as far as impact on the school, let's see, we just pushed through Steel Club development with 100+ houses, and that was fine. So
Mainly
there
over
was
55.
never
It
any
was
mention.
Clearly communicated, mainly
There
over
was
55.
never any
Lauren
mention
is
of the
speaking.
impact
Stop
of the
interrupting
school
her.
on that. Yet here's a smaller scale project. Like I said, it's a type of housing that we sort of lack, and we are supposed to offer variety of housing types in the township. So in that respect, I mean, I think it's a decent project. But I would like to see I mean, if you can put an easement on the back half, that would be wonderful, and definitely stay out of the wetlands, because they're very important.
Victoria?
Sorry, I didn't mean to try to interject. I thought she was done. Just a question for you. You said that you had been before us last year, or been before the Township Planning Commission. Have you heard from any other township officials before now that this is a terrible idea? Has that language been shared with you in the past?
It has not.
And so, and you were here in July of 2023?
Yes, to the planning
Okay.
commission.
And you know, has people
Allow them to answer the
expressed to
question.
you?
They didn't finish answering the question.
No, I'm sorry, I
For the
forgot that I
planning
had actually
commission.
printed the meeting minutes, and it was February, just for the record, it was February that we were in front of planning, and then we had submitted our zoning application in and around July of last year, and we've been kind of here ever since, so.
So it's never been before this township council,
February
right?
and
It was not before township council,
Thank you.
correct?
What do you put on the clown nose in the
February
wig?
and
You know what? One at a time, Jason. You know better. You're
She's
just
trying to
pushing
impugn this the
yourself.
prior council with.
in July,
with
has anybody
She's
expressed
lying
to
to the
you the
public. Stop
concern
lying.
about the school district impact
I don't.
or the terrible idea?
So what happened is, if you look at the February 2023 Planning Commission minutes, I apologize, I was saying July because that was in my head for the zoning submission.
Sure.
There's nothing indicating there that
Okay.
there was any negative. When we submitted the zoning, and then were scheduled to go potentially to council, but we did not. So the
Okay.
only formal meeting minutes that we have, unless I'm mistaken, Bill, are the February 2023
Okay.
meeting minutes, but nothing negative that has been expressed this evening or in those minutes.
Okay. So this is the first time that you're hearing that this is a terrible idea?
Yes, especially since Mr. Karachi was present at that planning
Yeah,
commission.
and I did.
Thank you.
Now I would like to respond, because I did have, I don't know what the meetings say, but let's look at the video, the audio of that. I did express my concerns on that. You were there, and I did express my concerns, and you know I did. So let's correct the record. I don't know what Kate's talking about there, and the minutes may be the minutes, whatever, but the minutes I don't think are verbatim. I'd like to go back to the recordings. I did express a concern there, and both of you know I did.
I want to clarify something as well, because she's lying to the public again. And that is, let's go to,
Sounds like the other way
let's go to,
around.
would you stop her from interrupting me, please?
You do it.
Would you, fine, then I'll keep doing it. Free
You-
fall, we're gonna have a free for all.
No,
It's a
it's
free for
open
all.
now.
Get ready, folks, it's
Open
gonna be
now.
a free
Get
for all.
ready,
Here we go.
folks.
Let's go to
Open
plan
so.
number 2 of 3,
They all
which is
see
the
it.
3-building plan, okay? What is the date that's in the lower right corner of that plan? 10/22/23?
10/24/23.
Thank you. What's the date of the plan number 3? 10/24/23?
That is correct.
So these plans were generated in October, the end of October of 2023. These plans have never, ever been presented to Township Council before today, correct?
That is correct.
Nothing along the lines of this has ever been presented to Township Council before today, correct?
That is what we just said, yes.
So there she is, Victoria, gaslighting the public, suggesting that prior council should have dealt with this issue when it was never before us before. But now, hold on, now it's before her, and she's trying to pass the buck. She's trying to pass the buck and blame prior council for this being in front of us and us raising the concerns that we have now and not addressing it before, something we never knew about because these plans were never generated and presented to us before. And what she's desperate to do, because she is so utterly incompetent, along with Priscilla and Laura Ray, utterly incompetent, they have absolutely no accomplishments whatsoever. They are desperate to get something done, and this is their desperation, to get this thing across the line to make it look like they've accomplished something in 9 months. What have they done in 9 months? They've illegally raised taxes. They've illegally produced an inaccurate budget. They've done a whole lot of things. They've given away money under guise. They've had secret meetings. They've caused litigation by the landfill. They've caused litigation by Verizon. And this is going to be their accomplishment, and they're going to try to blame prior council for not addressing something that never even existed in the first place. Here it is, people. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous.
I
And
believe-
I'm not done talking. I'm not done talking.
He's still talking.
Continue, I'll just
Utterly
ask for my
ridiculous.
spot after.
All they do is gaslight and misdirect and lie to the public.
wanna speak.
Here's another example of it, folks. Pay attention to the lies. They never stop.
Can I be recognized
I
just
want to ask you another
to
question. Hold on.
respond
No,
to
I'm
those
not done
things?
yet. I'm not done yet. I'm
don't
not
wait.
done, so stop interrupting me. I have a question for you. Does Tuscus use Mr. Gutsuzian for any legal services, or have they ever used Gutsuzian and Associates for legal services?
I'm always careful with words like ever, but in my experience and in my role at Tuscus, no, we have not.
Well, he's here, why can't we ask him? And Mr. Bartakovitz?
Has the property owner ever used Mr. Gutsuzian and Gutsuzian and Associates for any legal services?
I don't know.
Let's ask Mr. Gutsuzian.
Mr. Gutsuzian, have you offered legal services to either the applicant, Tuscus Homes, or the property owner at any time? You and your firm.
This is normally not an appropriate question, but that being said, just want to clarify who's who. I think that's Mr. Tuscus.
Yes.
I've never represented him.
For his company?
I've been on the other side, apparently, he says.
Okay.
Some guy named Mr. Mara. What's his name?
Bartakovitz.
Mr. Bartakovitz
Who's that?
is sitting next to Mr. Tuscus.
I don't know if I've ever met him before. So no, I haven't represented him.
All right, thank you.
All right.
So I just want to make sure I'm not interrupting, because I know we're code of conduct. We got a lot of hot air just came out of your mouth before about me, but I just want to make sure,
It's not
are you
hot
done?
air.
You
It's
know
the
what? Now
facts, and you're a liar.
Victoria's
Are you
speaking.
done?
You're a liar.
And
That's
she
what
let
the reality
you
is.
speak.
Are you done?
I am done, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Please tell the
So-
public, though, that you're a liar.
So we just heard that in February 2023, the developer was before our planning commission. Then they came back in July. So either, number one, you were living under a rock and not doing your duty
I was not
as a
on planning
council
commission.
person, or number two, you knew about this. So it's either one, you just weren't aware of anything that happened the last year, and Mr. Carochi isn't aware, or number two, you weren't paying attention.
He said he was aware, and he was opposed to it.
I was opposed to it.
So
in the planning
from my
It wasn't
perspective,
created until October.
I think before we start calling anybody a liar, before we start calling anybody misrepresenting and gaslighting, you have two choices.
Sit down.
Either one, you weren't paying
Take the
attention
podium,
the
sir.
entire year this project was before our township in any
Yeah.
capacity, or number two, you were aware and you thought it was just fine, but now you just want to cause trouble, so you're going to start complaining about school taxes and the people. So from my perspective, that's my opinion, and I think it
Sure.
speaks for itself.
We are leaving.
Hold on, you misrepresented, but first, you
No.
misrepresented my position. I was on the planning commission, you misrepresented my position both times they were before us. I did express concerns. We never voted one way or the other at planning for anything. You were just, it was an advisory, and I
Said
did.
was the
So- so-
minutes do not
You lied
reflect-
about my position. You
Okay,
misrepresented
one
my
at a
position.
time.
You should leave.
You should know better than that. We're all professionals here, supposedly.
She's not a professional.
Oh, my gosh, sorry. I apologize.
Guys, Mr. Sutton.
I really do.
Lying.
No, I apologize to the applicant.
She's not
And
a
if you have to leave, you have to leave. I just want to say the time is 8:10, But we do have to open up to the residents to see if any residents want to speak on this, so.
Yeah, you have the courtesy to stick around and answer their questions.
Okay, well, I can't speak for the audience, but we're finished with the applicant. Anybody in the audience would like to speak regarding this proposal? Please go to the podium.
No, ladies first. No, I'm not going, I'm just recording your minutes. Why don't you talk? Tell me to go ahead. First of all, I don't know the applicant. I do know, I've run into Kate Durzo. I have a great respect for her. The bottom line is, I find it incredulous that plans have been sitting around they've been drawn and they're sitting around since October of 2023. If that's the case, there's something really wrong here. That doesn't sound right. I don't know about Pennsylvania, but clearly I know about New Jersey. And there is a time limit under which you are forced to, as a town, either deny or approve based on that. I don't know what's happening here, but since January, we're already into September, nothing has happened, and here this is. I want to talk about...
Let me just explain. The appropriate...
I'm sorry, I don't want to hear this. Would you give me some more time? I'm really ripped. I was here till 4 o'clock in the last meeting that you, Priscilla, ran, and Ms. Blovier just talked above everybody, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And I want the public to know it, because I care. First of all, I look at this thing and say, underground parking in a stream like that? Do you know what happens to streams over years? They do nothing but grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So sitting there and encroaching and say, oh, we're just encroaching, that's today. And somebody upstream says, hey, I need some more area to run my water down. I live in an area that doesn't have any kind of water control. It all comes down my backyard, and it gets worse and worse. And if you want to see it, I'll show you videos. So sitting there and saying, look at this little meandering brook, that's today. And darn it, I would not let this thing go forward the way it is. I can't even imagine trying to get an NPDES permit for this. And why Laura Ray wasn't interested in it at that time really is over my poor head. And the bottom line is, I don't know where these rain gardens, as they euphemistically call them, or whatever, they're NPDES, deep trench, and where are they going to put these? I'm not going to get an answer to that. Nobody's going to get an answer to that. If I go to the planning board, I won't get an answer to where those rain gardens would go and what NPDES says. Where are the kids are they going to play? 2 kids per bedroom? That's about, I don't know, what is it, 40, 80 kids or so? Where are they going to play? They're going to play in the stream? Do we have any kind of protection? Are they all going to run across the street and play in the local basketball courts over here? What's the matter with you people? You're not awake. And sitting there and saying you can't understand what the yellow is on the map. Don't you ever look at key maps or anything? My God, you people are supposed to have a responsibility, and I only hear one person asking, or 2, asking salient questions. So where are those rain gardens going to go? 30 feet deep, and God only knows how long. And we won't know until we build it kind of attitude. Not acceptable. I would reject that. It's not needed. The density's huge. No place for school buses to unload and load up.
Okay, your time's up.
Oh, is she the judge now?
No, we
You're
both
supposed
said
to
it at
tell
the
her to
same
stop
time.
saying that.
About the extra time when you got
What
interrupted.
makes people mad at you, Priscilla, is you say no talking in the audience, and I know she's a supporter.
You're right. You didn't gavel her.
Attorney Durso, could you address the issue with the...
I'm sorry, I want to hear that again. What'd you say? What did you say, Mr. Caduzian?
I said, Attorney Durso, could you, and then you cut me off.
Because she was going to respond and interrupt you, and I told her you didn't like that. That's what I said.
I don't think it's not your rules, ma'am.
Be interrupted, yeah.
So,
I'm over with my time.
wanna
Perhaps she
listen?
could respond. I'd like that.
would you like her to respond, Kate?
Very much appreciate her response.
The appropriate extensions were provided to the township. There is no time limit aspect of it being violated by the township. When we did the submission, we provided the necessary extension under the MPC.
There you go. So what Mr. what Jason has said is true. You're sitting there trying to load some kind of guilt on when you already know the extensions have been granted. Shame on you. And you're an attorney?
She's a liar.
Pretends to be one.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak next? 3-minute time limit on topic, please.
That's fine. I have several things. My name is Robert Blasco. Yes, I am a resident of Lower Saucon Township. I have several things, but one that I really would like to point out. And that is, if the forward-looking previous council was so concerned about land preservation, they would have purchased the 2 conservation easements at the reduced purchase price that the landfill did. Instead, they allowed the landfill to acquire the land, and then they turn around and rezone the land to accommodate
Is this
the
on topic?
landfill.
I was talking about easements that you talked about. Anybody else like to speak?
What easements did I talk about? I didn't talk about easements. When did I talk about easements?
We talked about easements.
When did I talk about easements? The record reflects that I did not talk about easements.
You did talk about purchasing land for open space. That's what this is in reference to.
No, I
If you
didn't.
were so worried about open space, you would have bought those for the township.
Sir, I didn't say one word about open
We're not
space.
arguing.
You did. When it came
The property.
Okay.
Sir, listen, I know it's hard to understand. It's
domain.
hard for you to understand, but I
We're not
never said
arguing.
open space. I asked about how much money we have in the general fund, $9.5 million. That's not open space money, that's general fund money. So we would be able to acquire this property with general fund money.
Not say open space money either. Quit twisting what I
You
said.
said open space,
Okay.
not me.
Okay, calm down, everybody. Calm down.
Nice to see you again.
I don't need to be disrespected.
Okay, we'll just give them a second to leave. Get your things together. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, so next, under 4 township business items, A, authorize payments, number 4, number 5, number 10, to CH&N Construction and discussion of change order for the Easton Road Ball Field project. The township has received payment requests from CH&N Site Construction for the Easton Road Ball Field project. These payment requests have been reviewed by Hanover, and they are recommended payment of the following. Do you want to put that slide up, Kathy, while I'm talking, or Stacy? Number 4 of the bid, number 1, in the amount of $40,114.50. Number 10 of bid number 1 in the amount of $101,526.93, and number 5 of bid number 2 in the amount of $68,926.23. The township engineer would like to discuss the contractor change order. So Brian, did you want to
Yeah, do you want to do the payments first, and then I'll talk about the change order, or how do you want to
do the what motion first, you mean?
Yeah, do you want a motion to approve the payments first? Because the
make-
change order is not part of any of those 3
I
payments.
see, okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the payments to CH&N for the Easton Road Ball Field project in the amount of, I guess all that adds up, I didn't check it, $210,567.66. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Jason. Council discussion. Jason?
I'm glad to see the project's moving along. I've received a lot of positive feedback. People are excited for this. They see the progress. Looks like it's almost done. I appreciate all of Brian's efforts and Hanover's efforts being out there and monitoring this and keeping the project moving along. I think it's an asset for the community, and I look forward to it being completed. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, same. I've heard a lot of positive feedback. It'll be an asset to the community for 50, 60 years or longer. And then I think at the last meeting, we asked Kathy and Brian to possibly meet with the neighboring landowners about dedicating that road. Did you have a chance to do that yet or no?
Okay, we're talking about a motion for the payment, not the road. Okay, so stick on topic, please.
It is on topic. We're talking about the ball
No,
field.
you can talk about that after we do this motion.
Okay, so I can talk about it after we do this motion?
That's what I said.
That's what I heard.
All right. Yeah, again, money well spent. That's it for now.
Okay, I've heard both positive and negative comments, more negative, because of the amount of money for the field. Victoria?
Just a question, and I guess Priscilla, if you let me know if it's appropriate for now or later, but, question is, I think a number of council meetings ago, we had asked about the idea of approaching the developer to see if there was any way he could look at the project and cut back on the costs. How is
this about the payment?
That has
How is
to
this
go
about the
after.
payment?
Okay.
This is just
That's
about the
question.
payment.
Okay, so I have lots of questions, but for the purposes of this motion, I don't have any additional to add.
Okay, Laura?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay, public comment? 3 minutes. Please stay on topic for just the payment.
So far on this project?
It's up on the, Kathy, do you want to go over that chart, please?
Thought we're just talking about this $210,000 payment.
Well, I'll wait until you're done with that.
Thank you that you're on this meeting, Priscilla.
Anybody else?
Great job, Tom.
You're welcome. Somebody has to run the meeting. Priscilla's incapable.
Bob Kemmer, Lower Saucon Township.
Bobby, do you want to just lower the microphone, please?
I would like to know if the $3.3 million figure is the final figure. We still don't have running water out there, I understand, and we do not have restroom facilities. So is that going to be an add-on later on?
I thought we were talking about this payment, Priscilla. I thought you asked people to stay on point and to talk about this $210,000
You can have, the public can make statements, there's no requirement to respond, but.
Ball field.
Respond to the agenda item,
I want to know
though,
if
Susan.
we're done with $3.3 million.
Speak about the agenda item.
Okay, the motion on
Agenda
the
item is the
floor
payment.
is for the payment, Bob. It's not, so.
We're supposed to talk about the agenda
Okay,
item.
anybody
Susan.
else like to speak on this motion? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. DeLeon,
Yes.
Mr. Benonis. Yes. Ms. Uphoff Cordero,
Yes, as a contractual obligation.
Mr. Caroci,
Yes.
Ms. Ray. Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, Brian, you wanted to speak?
So the contractor request you have before you tonight is regarding the padding that's required on the fence and along the top rail of the fence. That during the construction submittal process, the contractor was supposed to use red padding in that area to have Saucon Valley colors to go with the black fence. Their subcontractor inadvertently ordered forest green padding and yellow top rail fence, acknowledging that was their error, but they said that if you would accept that because they've already ordered that, they will give you a credit of $22,500. So that's the request that they're asking.
Sounds good.
Make a motion to accept their request to deduct $22,500 or reimburse us $22,500.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Council discussion, Jason?
I think it's good that we're getting money back. I appreciate the honesty and the straightforwardness of Mill Creek Fence and Decks and the contractor to alert us to this and to recognize the error. And I think it's good that we're getting some money back on this project.
Okay, Tom?
Most baseball fields do have green fences with yellow tops to delineate when the ball goes over a fence. While it would have been nice to have the Saucon colors, I think it's acceptable.
Okay, I'm glad we're getting money back. I have no idea what colors are used on a baseball field, sorry, so.
You were out there, Priscilla, weren't you? You saw the field.
Victoria?
You were out there for Parks and Rec. You enjoyed yourself.
Just, do we have a picture of what it looks like, by any chance?
Looks like a baseball field.
Of what looks like the colors?
I can't think.
Yeah, I don't have anything with me, but I think part of the confusion is that is like their standard default colors. So that's why they were ordered.
Okay. I would have liked to just see a picture just so we don't have something that looks really.
Yeah, it's a forest green padding that goes on the fence posts, the vertical fence post, the mid rail. And then And there's a yellow top rail that goes on the top, so you can kind of see when the ball goes over the fence.
Okay. I'm happy that we can save any money, and I guess that goes into the other question that I had about, you know, a number of council meetings we had discussed potentially approaching the contractor to see if there were any cost savings that we could have with this project. Have you been able to identify any of those or had any discussions?
Where we could, we discussed it with them, but a lot of it was pretty cut and dry. And they're basically done now. What the payment applications that you approved tonight reflect a cut in half of the retainage that we're holding. So we've issued them punch list work to do after meeting with Public Works, and they're on the final stretch here.
Okay, just one other question. The sod, I think the last meeting you had discussed, or there was the comment about the concern that if we opened the baseball field this fall, we would jeopardize the integrity of the sod. And so that the recommendation from you and perhaps the contractor together was that it lay and set until the spring, is that right?
I think what I said was before we make that decision, that the contractor and Roger should be involved and the league in a decision like that. And the contractor, the sod is on their punch list because there are some issues regarding it taking correctly. So at this point, I don't have an answer as to when it would be the fall or the spring.
Okay, I'd just be interested to follow through on what the status of that situation is as we go forward, but thank you.
Okay, Laura?
Yeah, I don't have any questions on this.
Okay, residents, anybody would like to come speak on this issue?
Diane Hollowell, just being a Saucon Valley grad, like, you spent over $3 million. What's $22,000? Like, you might as well just invite Central Catholic, I think, they're green and yellow. Like, Saucon Valley is black. Like, this is supposed to be a Saucon Valley pride thing that we should be proud of for $3 million. You could at least put their school colors up there.
Okay, next.
The field's not just for the school, it's for,
What's that, Tom? The field's not just.
it's not just for the school, it's for
Thank you.
other people as well.
Resident, can you go to the podium, please?
My name is Lawrence Optoff, and I live at 2700 Reddington Road. And I'd like to know if I can now talk about this Holocaust project.
Really, this is comment, not questions, so.
Well, I can comment about the project?
I can't hear you.
I can comment about the project?
Yes.
Well, here's my
No, about the
comment.
$22,000, that's the agenda item.
You can comment about the cost of the project, that's.
$3 million
No, well,
for a baseball field with no bathrooms.
The motion.
we're,
Water.
Not the motion.
I understand that there's also a refreshment stand there, and I'm curious how the people are gonna wash their hands.
Talking about a
with
fence,
no
not a
running water.
concession stand.
we're talking about the
A fence.
$22,000 we're saving for the wrong color. That's what you have to
It's
speak
not a
on.
concession stand, it's a fence.
I'm sorry. Anybody else?
I'd like to comment on Mr. Optoff's comments. I'd propose, you know, he stood up here multiple times now. He's really upset about not having running water and a bathroom. I think we should take the $22,500 and apply that towards providing a well as well as composting toilets on the property. I think it's a smart use. He and others have expressed grave concern about the lack of water on the site. Apparently, porta potties that are provided at public sporting venues are unacceptable for people to use. So let's spend some more money on this that people don't want to spending, and let's use that money we got back. It's a windfall. And Victoria, this is something your father's really hot for. He really wants a bathroom and running water. So I suggest, I'm going to make a motion that
Well, first of all, you can't make a motion
don't
because
tell me
we
what I
already
can and
have a
can't do.
motion on the floor. You should know the rules, Jason. You
All right.
accuse
When
me
you're
that
done.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, you don't.
You obviously don't know what you're doing because you just proved it now.
I forgot that we didn't actually
just
vote on that.
pro-
I just admit, Priscilla, I forgot that we didn't vote on that motion. So I will make a motion when we are done making that motion and voting on it, okay?
Okay, anybody
Thank
else
you.
on the,
Thank you
in
for
the
allowing me to do that.
audience would like to speak on this? But you have to speak on the.
So now you're gonna spend more money on the ball field.
Hey, this guy wants a bathroom. He wants a
You
bathroom.
can't speak on that yet.
He wants a bathroom, sir, not me. I'm not the one saying
We're
it.
up to
This gentleman, ask him why he wants a bathroom in the
on
water.
a baseball field that will be used 6-7 months out of the
your
year.
father.
And I've been around
Her.
talking to people in township. Half the people don't even know we have a ball field out there.
Well, now they do.
Okay.
I didn't know about it.
Big lights, you'll be able to see it from everywhere.
Anybody else like to speak on the motion that's on the floor about the 22,000 that we're saving and the wrong colors? Yellow and green.
Catholics? You don't like Catholic people? You biased?
Please, sir, would you like to speak?
Yes,
Talk about my
I'm
child.
Dave Boulan, and I'd like to speak. I'll tell you, it's just getting difficult. Here we are, it's 8:30 already, and we're through the easiest things in the world. I mean, Brian comes up and says, yeah, we've got this wonderful thing, and you're gonna get money back, and now it's a big, well, 22,000 doesn't mean anything to some resident. Does to me. I'd love to, give it to me, I'll take it, right? And if the colors aren't right, hey, every time I go by a ball field, and by the way, for those that can't get out to the ball field, or they don't like ball fields, but they're gonna make all these decisions on it, maybe that person should just take a little trip and look at the ball field, right? It's really sad. I think $22,000 is a handy sum. I'll take it any day of the week. And as far as the colors, absolutely. I was out the other day around through Hellertown, which can't afford anything, and they got all sorts of yellow topped fences and things. Also porta potties, come on.
Okay, anybody else like to speak? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Benonis?
Just so that I'm clear, this is the motion to accept the reimbursement of $22,500 from the
For the wrong color.
for the topper and the colored fence.
It is officially change order number 17 of the original contract.
Okay, I will agree to yes on change order number 17. Thank you, Brian.
Ms. Othoff Cordero?
Yes, I wish there was more cost savings.
Mr. Carucci?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
So
Okay,
going back to, so thank you for recognizing me again. Going back to Mr. Optoff's concerns about the lack of running water and the lack of a toilet, and concern, I guess, about using a porta potty that are used at oftentimes at outdoor sporting venues. I'm going to ask that we explore what the cost would be to provide a well with running water. We have electricity, obviously, as well as a composting toilet. For this, we have a windfall of $22,500, and Mr. Optoff, among others, have expressed concerns about not having water and not having a toilet. I don't think people need a shower, but they would like, I guess, a sink maybe, or running water for a toilet. So let's explore that. Let's invest some time and effort into that and see what the cost of that would be, and maybe we want to spend more money on it. I don't know.
Right, so your motion is to reallocate that money possibly for or reallocate that $22,000 savings to look at bathroom facilities, permanent bathroom facilities on the site.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what my motion is.
I'll
Thank you, Tom.
second that. I'll second that motion. Sounds like a great idea,
Your motion
Mr.
is
Opp.
like 1,000 words. You know, you gotta like be
Well,
specific.
I'm sorry,
about-
before we go any further, if the motion is to allocate funds and to spend funds, it can't be placed on this agenda. If the motion.
Reallocate.
Hang on.
Doesn't
If the
matter.
motion that initially Mr. Benonis was talking about was to explore something.
That's what it was.
But that's not what you said when Mr. Croce asked.
I
you.
agree
That's-
with him.
Yep. So I'm clarifying. So if the motion is what you originally said, to explore, that is a proper motion that we can handle today.
Okay.
If you want to allocate funds, the rules are you cannot do that now. It would have to be placed on a separate agenda.
Fair enough. Then I will make my original motion, which was to explore the possibility of drilling a well, providing running water, as well as bathroom facility options for the Eastern Road ball field in light of the windfall that we've received here, the $22,500 back from the developer.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Jason, did you have any other input?
I think it's a great idea. I thank Mr. Optoff for that. I think it's a great idea to use this money wisely. I hope that his daughter follows her father's wishes.
Okay, Tom?
Bathrooms seem very important to Mr. Optoff, so I'm all for it.
I would like to say that this should have gotten discussed when this whole thing was started, but
Just deal with it now.
whatever.
Well, you
Victoria?
can. I mean, don't shirk your responsibility.
So the key words I heard were windfall. Windfall. We are now in a windfall. $3.5 million on a ball field, and we're windfall because we're saving $22,000 from a fence color. So he now wants to spend that $22,000, which is still your taxpayer dollar. So I don't know where the windfall comes from. I mean, the dollars come out of the sky, or maybe the water, they trickle up and the streams start flowing the money in, but it's still your taxpayer dollars. So now he wants to spend more money to do the planning he should have done when he decided that it was a great idea to convert the Easton Road ball fields, there was 2, into one giant Field of Dreams. And now we want to turn it into the Taj Mahal. I think it's great. We should have had, if we were going to spend $3.5 million on anything in this township, we should have considered and decided that we needed bathrooms and running water and accommodate a snack stand and whatever else that needs to help and accommodate that area. So that should have been part of your planning. The whole point, the discussion about toilets and water and all of the facilities, the improvements that you would think a ball field of $3.5 million would have, the whole idea of talking about it was the fact that it wasn't planned for. And now we're $3.5 million into it, and now just discussing, well, gee, maybe we should have bathrooms. Gee, maybe we should have running water. And we're gonna have windfall of money. So I wanna know where the windfall comes from, because it didn't come from my pocket, and it's not gonna come from their pockets. So where's the windfall? And second of all, where was the planning? The planning for these things. If there was one iota of thought into this project, somebody would have said to themselves, maybe we should have water, maybe we should have toilets, we should have the ability for a snack stand or whatever else is going on down there. But I'm gonna look into it more, and I can't wait to find out the answers, because my thought process is any other ball field around here didn't cost $3.5 million with none of those facilities in place. That's my point.
I'd like to.
The
whole idea to use more taxpayer dollars to investigate something that should have been investigated. I'm not spending more engineering time on what ifs and maybes and we shoulda, coulda, woulda last year.
Okay, Laura?
No, I'm gonna speak. You're not gonna silence me, because she's just disparaged the township engineer.
Disparaging.
If somebody would have put one iota of thought into this, Brian spent a considerable amount of time engineering this project, and I think it's an insult to him and to his company to suggest that they did not consider this.
You just talk.
You're not gonna silence me, Priscilla. You
Also like to make.
See, Priscilla, it's not a gavel
Just
in your hand,
fatigue.
it's a
Don't make her
hammer.
hit that gavel.
It's a gavel when there's some level of authority behind it, and you have no authority because you're incompetent. You're incompetent. You're incompetent. You like to bang it, and you have no authority behind it.
Windfall, folks, windfall.
Hey,
I'd like to make
Roach is speaking.
I'd like to make a motion.
Laura, he's not.
I'd like to make a motion
So-
that we name these bathrooms after Mr. Optoff, the
Okay.
Lawrence Optoff
Stop
bathrooms at the park.
talking.
Second that.
And we can put a plaque up. I'd like to put a plaque up on the outside of the bathroom that says Lawrence.
Stop
'cause he gave us
talking,
the-
Tom. Stop talking,
idea.
Jason.
He gave us the idea. You gave us the idea.
Follow rules, but you don't enforce
It was a great idea, Mr.
Allow people
Optoff.
to yell at Mr. Boulin.
And I think we
allow
build the
people to interrupt
bathrooms
him
and we
all the
name them the
time.
Lawrence Optoff bathrooms. We'll put a plaque on there that says the Lawrence
Tom.
Optoff bathrooms. And then,
A nice one.
I think it's a great idea, and you're right, there should be bathrooms out there. There should be bathrooms out there.
Tom.
Name's
And,
Tom.
thank you for the idea, Mr. Optoff. You've truly added to, this project.
Well, I'm not in
and this
favor of
council.
spending any more money on this
I can't thank
project
you
at
enough.
this
I can't
time.
thank you enough.
Let's have a roll call.
Selective
I
control.
promise you, we're gonna get the
Control
Lawrence
and
Just for a
Optoff
roll
bathrooms,
call.
a nice
Wait, we now
plaque
gotta-
on
we
the
gotta do
side. When
public
people walk in,
comment.
they'll be able to see it.
We gotta do public
They'll
comment.
be able to see it.
No, we're at Laura's still.
Laura's.
We'll be able to
Coach,
see
he
it.
hasn't spoken yet.
I made a motion. I made a motion.
No, he needs to speak.
No, he was right after you. I go by alphabet.
Speak. Tom, I recognize you. Sure I do.
Again, I made a
Not run the
motion,
meeting.
the Lawrence
doesn't either.
Optoff
It's Laura's turn.
That's your opinion.
bathrooms. I don't understand why that's
Same
controversial.
thing about you.
Let's turn off all these microphones.
On the Lawrence
This is
Optoff
ridiculous.
bathroom.
All right, you know what? Meeting's
I don't
recessed. Is
understand.
there a
I
motion?
don't understand.
Huh?
We'll let the toddlers calm down. Get a timeout.
You should be happy. It's named after your father.
Yeah, I'm naming the bathrooms after
an
your
accomplishment,
father.
family
Oh,
accomplishment.
Nuts. Oh, crazy. He gave us a great idea. He said there
Yes,
should be bathrooms.
I would turn reconvene the meeting at 8:42. So we were in, Laura, you were going to be speaking on the motion?
Let me get my microphone on. Okay, so in general, no, I'm not in favor of looking to try to spend more money on this project at this time. I don't think it's warranted. $22,500 is not much of a windfall, and we've already had plenty of overages, so that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll open it up to the audience. Would anybody like to come up to speak to on the podium? Yes, go ahead, please. And we have to stick to the motion that's on the floor.
Can you repeat that motion? Can you repeat that motion
sorry?
again? Can you repeat that motion?
Please remind me what the motion is exactly.
Yeah, my
It's
motion again is, and I'll state my motion. My motion is to direct township staff and the engineer to explore the possibility of providing running water and bathroom facilities at the Eastern Road Ball Field, consistent with what Mr. Optoff previously expressed concerns about repeatedly, and others have expressed concerns about repeatedly. So we have this $22,500, and perhaps the options available to us would coordinate with that money that we've received back from the builder.
Okay, well, I have to say that I think it's necessary to have bathrooms and running water at a baseball field, especially one that costs all that money. I drive by there at least 2 or 3 times a day, and I wonder how we could justify such a nice ball field without having those kind of basic facilities. Plus, I understand that there was some kind of a concession stand, and the question came up, how can anybody handle food if they can't wash their hands? So that was an issue I had. However, I'm definitely for having running water and bathrooms there for the people who are playing the field and also the guests that are there. And I agree with that.
Thank you, sir.
I agree with
I hope
you.
your daughter agrees with you.
Okay.
I hope your daughter agrees with you.
I agree with you.
Well, the problem is that you have to look at the fact that spent all this money, and that now we're figuring this out. It should have been thought out way ahead of time.
Okay, next. Thank you.
Time in for a dollar.
Stretch that 22,000 and get the job done, fine. But that's it. That should be it. There should be that should be a ceiling on it, and that's it.
Okay.
So, but you know darn well 22,000 isn't going to get you anywhere.
I don't know that. That's why I'm asking the township staff to look into it. I don't build bathrooms, and I'm not a plumber.
You started this project started at 1.9, then it went to 3.3, and now I'm hearing it's 3.5. I object the way this whole thing went down by that forward-looking council. This was your baby. You started this back in August of 23. Then in December of 23, you wanted to push it through. You said you had to get it through because prices were going to go up. And you're probably right about that. But you also knew that the council was going to change, and there was a very good chance they would nix the whole damn thing.
They could have.
And they should have. You're right.
They did.
It's too late.
Why
I
didn't
agree
they?
with that.
They promised you.
But the problem is now you still want to spend more money on it.
No, it's money
Your
coming back.
forward-looking council should have thought of these things. Where were you? You're forward-looking. You're blaming them on not being forward-looking. That was on you. So what did you do? Nothing.
Sir, I think you're rewriting history here. What you don't recognize is that this project was actually done in 2 phases. The first phase that you mentioned, the 1.8 million, actually is what I believe the number was actually to reconfigure the ball field. The second phase was to provide the lighting and the other infrastructure for it. So it was done in 2 phases. So that's where I think where your misunderstanding
It was called, the
is.
first phase was called an overhaul. The second phase, to put it up to 3.3, was a complete overhaul. Yeah, I have the paperwork right here. Complete overhaul.
So the original...
Now, what's the difference between an overhaul and a complete overhaul other than more millions of dollars?
So the original project was to turn the baseball field 180 degrees to configure it so that it actually had the size. So the field that was there before did not have the size that was a standard size for players at that age, at that level playing. It was too small. So there was a smaller ball field, and Victoria Optoff Cordero just referred to this earlier, that we took away a ball field. There was a smaller ball field that was there for T-ball. And that T-ball field that was never used, it was overgrown, and there were dugouts that were actually cinder block walls that were collapsed down. It was a safety hazard. So that's why that was removed, to accommodate the size of this field. So phase one was the reversing of the field, and I'm sure the township engineer can speak to this if I'm incorrect. First phase was to turn it 180 degrees to do excavation work and to provide a field of adequate size. The second phase was to put in the lighting for that field, because there's no lighted full-size baseball field anywhere in the Saucon Valley. There's none in Hellertown, there's none in Lower Saucon Township. Just about every municipality in the Lehigh Valley and up into the Poconos has a lighted baseball field for kids to play on in the spring and the fall when it's dark out. And we don't have that. So the purpose of this was to get a field for baseball, which has been highly successful. I'm sure that you follow baseball and you see how successful the high school team.
But we don't need 3.3, now 3.5 million for the baseball.
Spread it out over 50, 60 years, sir. You know, this is a capital investment.
But you're the same people that
Whatever.
complain
I'm not
about
gonna
spending
argue with
$125 for the Hellertown Library.
Yeah, more people
Sir, we
use the
offered,
Told us we were getting fleeced.
$50,000 to Hellertown.
Getting fleeced.
So, to be clear,
Fleeced by this ball field.
Kemmerer, we offered $250,000 to Hellertown, and they thumbed their nose at us and said, go to hell. Okay? That's what they said to us.
Then why did you give $50,000 to another library?
They didn't thumb our nose. They honored us. Thank you.
Out of order.
Ask them why they gave $97,000 to the Hellertown.
Who wants to
Library.
go next?
Well, I'd like to respond to that.
No, it's public comment
You
right
should,
now.
Tom, respond.
Well, I
You ask
agree with
questions, you have
Mr.
the right, you have the
Optoff.
right to respond to
I
him.
agree with Mr. Optoff, and I agree with Mr., was it Keller? That we need a bathroom out there, and I hope it is under $22,000. But I gotta be honest with you, if it's 30, it's still worth doing. If it's 50, maybe not. But if it's 30 or 35, I mean, you're already in this for $3.5 million. Let's have running water in a bathroom.
Public comment. He's
So thank you
interrupting
for
your
bringing up
public
the importance of that. I agree with you 100%. There should be running water and bathrooms there. I agree with both of them. And I agree we should try and keep it under $22,000. But if we can't, and it's gotta be a little bit higher, then it's gotta be a little bit higher, but it should be out there. So thank you for your idea. And I would again like to name it the Lawrence
In
Optoff
public comment.
restroom facility.
Are you ready?
Well, we'll get a plaque on the side when you walk in.
I will donate the plaque.
There's gonna be men's, women's, but right in the middle there, there'll be, there'll be a Lawrence Optoff bathroom. Thank you.
Tom, are you gonna let the residents speak?
Yeah. Well, you get 3 minutes. What's the clock? Why'd you start the clock?
I would say, well, that was quick. Stacy. I would suggest that he's a councilman, right? And he is elected. And I would suggest the person in the audience should be held quiet by the president of the council. That'd be you, okay? And if you don't do that, you won't get the respect. Now, in terms of putting in bathrooms, gee, that's a wonderful idea. Didn't they have bathrooms in Hellertown around the swimming pools that were absolutely savaged? All the porcelain was broken, needles in the bathrooms. So you better allow another, I don't know, what does it cost to have a couple of policemen out there keeping an eye on it? And as far as porta potties, yeah, well, you'd have them in there too. But let's see here, I'm not sure, we do have some lights, so we could run a well perhaps and pump it. But the other is just, that's probably even too much, even if you called it the whatever bathroom. So, and as a matter of fact, I remember the discussions going on about this ball field for a long time. And there's very little resistance to spending this money. And I see somehow magically certain people are talking about not the original 3+ million, now it's jumped to 3.4, 3.5. Seems like, those are just convenient words and not factual. So I'd ask the council, president council, when she knows that something is incorrect, clearly when the figures are up there on the screen, that you correct them. What is it, 3.4 something? Yeah, okay, I'll just leave it at that. So anything else is bloviating.
Yeah, 1.9.
3.429, is that it?
3.429.
Okay, can we all get together and say 3.429, not 3.5, not 3.6, not it's going through the ceiling. That's why you get people emotional.
$500,000.
Okay, anybody else like to speak?
Oh, you.
And we gotta keep on topic on Jason's motion.
All right, we'll name it the Optoff Blasco restroom. I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't mean to cut you out.
My question, well, not a question, my statement, I guess. We were up to the ball field a month ago, Parks and Rec, looking around at different things. And I questioned because people that were there that live behind where the backstop is wanted to know about the lights. They're going to be trespassing onto their property. And I questioned at the time, why couldn't the ball field be turned around, facing the other direction? And they said because there's wetlands out there that the ball field couldn't be expanded that way.
Bob, I don't
and
like
other
to
things.
interrupt you, but we're not talking about lighting. I'm sorry.
I'll get there.
Okay.
You give this gentleman here all kinds of leeway, give me a little. And as far as talking when somebody else is at the podium, sir, I wish you would follow your own advice.
Right, he just did.
My thing is, I don't know that there's any place to put a bathroom out there. If it's going to be down at the parking lot, you're going to miss half the game till the time you walk down there, go to the bathroom, and come back up. It's a little ridiculous.
I agree with you.
You gotta hustle.
Okay, anyone else like to speak? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Optoff Cordero,
No.
Wow.
Mr. Croce,
Your rough Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Ms. Deleon,
No.
Mr. Benonis.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Mr. Optoff, I'm sorry, they didn't want your bathroom.
Mr. Optoff. No bathrooms at the field now, Mr. Optoff.
Okay, there were suggestions of other motions. I'm giving you an opportunity now. I don't.
I'm sorry?
Someone said there were other motions.
Yeah, I
but
don't
they
have
were
another motion, I
interrupting.
just have a question. So at the last council meeting, I had asked Kathy to look into whether we can reallocate open space money that had been used for this baseball field project. We have, what, $10 million in open space? Have you had an opportunity, I understand if you didn't, but have you had an opportunity to check with the solicitor and to see whether or not that money can be reallocated, because this is really an open space? We're never going to spend the $10 million.
I have not had a chance
Okay.
to talk to a solicitor, but I do believe, based on historical applications, we probably could. It would just depend on what on the bid specs would be considered the open space maintenance component.
Wonderful. Everybody's going to be happy now. We're not using taxpayer money. We're using open space money that's never, ever going to be spent because we have so much of it. So let's
I will
explore
double check
that.
with the solicitor for
Where
an
did the
opinion.
open
Open
space money?
space, I mean, that's another windfall. We just had, we had money falling from trees.
Speaking.
We're not using taxpayer general fund money.
No, we're
using, don't interrupt me. We're using taxpayer open space money. Which the open space money is a $10 million fund that's designed for open space usage. This is open space usage, right? So why not use that money for this project?
And
Because we have $10 million.
paid.
Tell me, when are we going to spend the $10 million
I
that's
don't
accruing
know.
interest?
I don't know,
Tell
but
me,
I'm just
it was
telling you.
It was a grand idea. Remember when we sent out letters, we identified every parcel in the township that would have met the definition of, what was it, 20 acres or more?
20 acres or more.
20 acres or more, to see if people were interested in either allowing us to acquire that land or to put a conservation easement on it. And nobody came forward, or virtually nobody came forward.
Right.
So we're going to sit on $10 million, it's going to sit in the bank, it's going to continue to accrue interest, and it's not going to be spent. So why not use that money, okay, that open space money that, yes, was collected with tax dollars, which the open space fund, open space tax has been eliminated, because we eliminated that tax because there's so much money in the account. So why not use that money for a purpose like this? Because people are concerned about having used general fund money to pay for this.
Okay,
Thank
if
you,
there's
Tom.
no other discussion, we're moving on to the next agenda
Thank you,
item.
Kathy.
We have B, discussion and possible action regarding open space. Council will discuss possible expenditure of funds related to open space. We met in executive session, discussion took place. No official action in executive took and took place, but this is an agenda item, and I guess, Steve, would you like to give us more information?
Sure. With regard to the open space, there may be a property that the township might be interested in, identified for purposes of today as property 02-2024. If someone is inclined to make a motion to direct the manager to obtain an appraisal and to spend not more than $5,000 for the appraisal, and if necessary, schedule the matter for a public hearing, that could be done, if someone chooses to make that motion.
I'll move to authorize an appraisal of property 02-2024, not to exceed $5,000.
Second that.
Laura? Okay, council discussion, Jason?
I think this is great that we finally have an opportunity to perhaps spend a little bit of the open space money on a project, on a property like this. So let's see what the appraisal comes back and see how the negotiations go.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah. How large is the parcel again? How many acres?
20.
It's
Approximately 20.
20.
It's in your packet if you came to the executive session.
Yeah, I was locked out.
No, you weren't.
Okay. Well, can you answer the question or not?
Approximately 20 acres.
Thank you. Geez, was that so hard?
Here's homework.
Thank goodness. Okay. 20 acres. I mean, it's going to be open to the public. You might need a bathroom on 20 acres.
Just asking you to show up, that's all.
No, that sounds like a good use of open space money.
Okay, I think this is great to do. Victoria?
I'm in full support of this. I thank the EAC for getting back to doing these kinds of things, and I'm glad that this was finally moved forward to council.
I agree. It's about time EAC did something like this.
Laura?
Besides plastic bag bans and opposing the landfill.
Yes, and you know, one of the reasons why open space projects weren't moving forward is because we didn't have an open space committee, which was dissolved by the prior council, and you never put together a new committee to start working on anything. So now that we have a new, you did not have a complete committee ever put together.
Now it's a complete committee.
So now we have
committee.
There was.
No.
You know what? You're talking over Laura.
I'm not talking, I'm correcting your misstatements. There was an open
Not a
space committee. It's
misstatement.
dishonest.
It's not totally staffed with all the
does that mean?
members, and you never looked at any properties. So I'm glad this is moving forward.
I wasn't on the open space committee to look at any properties.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the audience. Anybody here like to speak on this? We'll go up to the podium, please. And this is only to spend $5,000 for up to $5,000 for an appraisal of an open space parcel.
Well, I think it's a good idea. And I just would like to say something real quick about my daughter and myself. I love my daughter. And I'd like to say that I brought her up to have a mind of her own.
Is this for the appraisal?
Come on.
Seriously, is this on topic?
Is this for the
Anytime we're off
appraisal?
Give her a hug and a
topic,
kiss.
anytime we're off topic,
Give her a hug and a
corrects
kiss.
us.
Okay, anybody else like to come up and speak?
Anytime we're off topic.
Where is this open space parcel?
Well,
Wait, wait.
oh yeah, we're not answering questions, I'm sorry.
And it's not appropriate because at this point, it's real estate and part of an executive session, and this is not something we would identify in the public.
Okay,
You'll know when
next.
we know.
Can I make statements like that? I don't have a daughter on the council. But if I lived somewhere and I came by the park all the time and my daughter came to see me, she'd see the park all the time also and know about the colors on the railings.
Okay, that really had nothing to do with this agenda item.
So why don't you critique Mr. Optoff for having nothing to do with
Right.
it? You're going to throw a grenade at Mr.
Right,
Boulan, but you won't do the same to Mr. Optoff.
Anybody else would
No
like to make
comment
a
on that.
comment?
No comment on Ms.
Okay, so may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Caroci?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLeon?
Yes,
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Ms. Optoff Cordero? Yes. Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. C, resolution number 67-2024, disposition of township records. Resolution 67-2024 has been prepared for council to approve the disposal of municipal records in accordance with Title 46, Chapter 15, Chapter 15, 46 VA Code 15.51. I make a motion to approve Resolution 67-2024, authorizing the disposition. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Jason, comments?
Yeah, so Kathy, just to be clear, the records that are being disposed of are essentially financial records, right? Payroll and tax revenue and things like that. This doesn't help to cover up Priscilla's past history on township council, right?
These are all legal.
That was really good tonight. No, that's quite appropriate.
These are records that are appropriated to be disposed of and shredded, and none of them, everything that is on here was probably scanned at some point, so we do have some records up there. We just don't need
Meeting minutes
copies.
and documents like that will still be preserved for posterity, right?
If council wishes.
Well, maybe they'll change it. They may want to cover their tracks. Okay, thank you.
Tom?
So it looks like some of these documents are on the last page, 2019, 2018, 2020. They're just field use requests. It seems a little early. Someone can't go back a couple years and do some research on field use requests so we can, even if it's like Parks and Recs, right? What if they wanted to go back and say, okay, you know, over the past 10 years or 8 or 9 years, what were the field use requests? And then what were the special events requests to determine whether it's upgraded, what facilities are being used the most, what are being used least, why are we getting rid of this information? I understand some of the stuff that's 10 or 15 years or older. I understand that. I'm not so sure about why we're getting rid of these documents that are 3, 4, and 5 years old. Are they really taking up that much room in storage?
Those particular documents, if I'm not mistaken, can be removed or disposed of within 3 years.
Right, it can be.
Anything that would be, as you said, a request for field usage or any of that should be in Park and Rec minutes or should be in, we would have record of them in some other fashion, whether it be council minutes and approval of an event or
No, we weren't,
any of those items.
we wouldn't do, council wasn't approving special events until a couple of years ago. That was like the township manager's job. And the same with field use requests. With that, there was a big issue with that, and that's why we put together like a new form that said, you know, if it would have to go to council. This was when Leslie was here. She put together a new form. Before that, it didn't go to
We used
council.
to do special event applications on council back to.
Not field use requests, and certainly not pavilion rental requests were not done by council either.
No.
They weren't. So, and they weren't done by Parks and Rec.
No, there was an internal document. Council never saw those things.
Documents from residents.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They're destroying. They're only 5 years old. Some of them are only 5 years old. Why? Like I know you may be able to by law, but I'm saying, what's the rush and why?
Historically, we've never really had to go back and look at these.
Right. But now you're going to prevent people from ever having the opportunity to go back and look at
If you would like, we could scan these documents and keep them electronically.
The ones that are only 4 and 5 and 6 years old, I say yes. I mean, scan them, and then if you want to destroy the originals, that's fine. But I don't understand. Like I said, I'm completely in line with, you know, we're talking about you know, saldo build copies from 2012. You know, 2010 vendors projects compiled AP file update. Yeah, fine, get rid of them. 2000, 24 years ago, payroll files. Yeah, fine. 1999 payroll files. Yeah, they're 25 years old. Get rid of them. Absolutely. But I don't understand why we're getting rid of stuff that's 4 or 5 years old.
The state sets these guidelines.
I said, I know, I understand. Priscilla, I understand the state. That doesn't mean you have to. They're not saying you have to get rid of them. They're saying you can get rid of them. And I'm saying, let's not. They're not saying you have to get rid of them. Know the law. So I make a motion that we get rid of everything.
You're in the middle of a motion already.
There's no motion
I don't,
already.
yes, there is. We're having
wasn't?
council discussion.
Tom, you could propose amendment to
I
the
don't
motion.
get it. You don't
Okay,
know this?
then I would like the motion amended to keep
No.
the administrative documents from being destroyed.
No, Priscilla and Victoria made the motion.
And he has the authority to propose an amendment.
And he votes no. But right now, the motion is on the floor for us to do this.
Proposing an amendment.
No, and
He has the right
all
to
right.
propose amendment to
Hold
it.
on, slow down, just.
Cover.
If you say no, you say no.
Okay, everybody, hold on, everybody stop talking for 1 second.
Cover up.
Stop talking, please.
Another cover up.
If the request is, Mr. Croce is asking, will you amend your motion? If that's what he's asking, he can ask, and you can say no, and then it ends. Like, we don't go around again for anything else.
I say no.
Okay.
Okay, are you finished?
So Tom, what was your amendment, your proposed amendment?
Right, that the administrative records over the past 5 years be retained, and everything else can be destroyed.
Okay, so I said no. So moving on, it's my turn. I think it's hysterical that you guys really care about what I've done over the past 36 years and don't want to get rid of them. It's all in the minutes. I'm very proud of my background and history. So, Victoria?
I don't have anything to add to this.
Laura?
Yeah, I don't really see any reason that those particular records would be useful, so.
Okay, open it up to the audience. Anybody like to speak on this issue?
All right, Dave Luann. The bottom line is I'm in the middle of a lawsuit right now, not me. I am a witness for it, okay? And I have documentation from 2015, all right, which is going to be used as evidence. Do I have paper copies? I sure do. Do I have it on computer? I sure do. By the way, you can buy about a 20 terabyte disk for just a couple $100. By God, it will probably store anything and everything, no matter what you have in your file system. So I don't know about the paper. If we're trying to get relief from too much paper, yeah, good. Scan them in and keep them. You can't go wrong. It's cheap as dirt, okay? So there you go. There's your inexpensive, unfortunately, not like a toilet in the ball field solution.
Okay, anybody else like to speak? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Is this with Tom's amendment or without?
No, it's without.
I mean, I think Tom's amendment's a reasonable proposal. I don't know why you wouldn't want to keep more data, but I'm going to vote no. I think you should include the amendment.
Ms. Optoff Cordero? Yes. Mr. Croce?
No, we shouldn't be destroying records.
Motion
Public has a
passes
right to
3-2.
Okay, next we have D, authorization to dispose of municipal property. Staff is requesting council's approval on putting the 2007 Mack truck and the 2001 Barber Green paver out for bid on the online auction site Municipid. So I make a motion to approve placing the vehicles out for auction on Municipid. Am I saying that right? Municipid?
Yep.
Per the memo dated August 23rd, 2024. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Council discussion, Jason? Crickets? I didn't know he left the meeting. Tom?
No. I don't have any on this.
What did he say?
He said he didn't have anything.
Oh, okay. I really have no comments. Victoria?
I don't have anything to add.
Laura?
No, this is
Okay.
standard practice.
Audience, anybody would like to come up and speak on this? Okay, I guess, can we do a roll call without it? Yeah, the roll call.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes?
Ms. Optoff Cordero?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 absent.
Exactly.
Okay, update regarding Verizon litigation. Possible action regarding, the solicitor will provide an update regarding the litigation. Steve?
We had an executive session. No official action took place in the executive session. I was given some direction from counsel to respond back to counsel for Verizon, and I will do so. There's nothing to vote on or nothing else to do at this point.
No action. Okay, moving on, funding request for the tire recycling program. Staff is requesting council's approval up to $400 for their tire recycling event. Previous funding approved by council in the amount of $150 was for the resident participation incentive. I'll make a motion to support the staff request to count for council's approval up to $400 for the tire recycling event. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Kathy, did you have anything else to report on this?
No, it just came to our attention that there is a staging fee that's related to the tire recycling program. We're looking for partners to help pay for the cost. That's why it's an up to fee.
Okay.
And we've already placed it in our newsletter and have been promoting the program. Right. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball on this a little bit. So and that's all I really have to add.
Thank you. Laura, did you want anything for the EAC to comment on?
Only if anybody has questions, but.
No, I don't have any questions. I think it's great you're doing it. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the $400. Anyone in the audience like to comment on that?
I'm sorry, did you go through everybody?
Go through them.
I did. Didn't I go through everybody?
I didn't speak to it, but I haven't.
I'm sorry. I called on the EAC and I thought Laura went. Sorry, not yet. Jason?
Kathy, you said that you're looking for partners to help pay for this event?
Yes.
And what sort of funding and partnership are you looking for?
There were some that might have offered a donation to help cover the cost, and municipal partnership.
Maybe municipal partnership, like another municipality partnering with us?
Well, Hellertown is co-sponsoring this.
Right, I understood that. But, okay, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Tom?
How much does Saucon contribute?
I have not heard confirmation on that yet.
So there's nothing.
Possibly. As I said, I have not heard confirmation.
We're recycling Hellertown's tires.
We're recycling Hellertown's tires at lower Saucon Township taxpayers' expense. That's a possibility.
It's a possibility. I have not heard confirmation on that yet.
Who have you reached out to as far as community partners besides Hellertown? Or who is it?
Well, Hellertown is the one that's partnering with us on this program. We just found out last minute that's on Friday, so that's why I put it on the agenda, to make sure that we're not retracting things that are in our newsletter. However, people have approached and had offered donating to as well.
Well, maybe Laura, our EAC member, can tell us if there's been communication between EAC and Hellertown to help subsidize this. Has there been?
Not personally by me, because I'm not chairing or running this event.
I understand that, but you're on EAC.
Yes, and we didn't have a meeting since this came up.
I know, but you still have phone numbers and contact information for other EAC members, right? You could reach out to them.
I have not reached out to Hellertown.
Okay. Do you know if anybody else on EAC has?
Possibly.
Do you know or don't you know?
I don't 100% know, but
So
possibly,
no.
yes.
Okay.
Well, who else in the community? What are you talking about, community people? You say others. Who else?
There have been other people that.
Who?
Myself.
No.
Is it a crime?
No.
Well, what's the problem then?
I'm not talking to you.
I was considering donating some money just to offset the cost of this.
It's very kind of you, Kathy.
Anybody else?
Well, Mr. Gazuzian was offering as well, but nothing's confirmed, but we had offered.
Okay. All right, so maybe nothing?
In the event, you know, the $400 is needed.
The $400 is needed. Yeah. And what's the $400 exactly going to be used for?
It's their staging fee to get them to come and have the employee here.
So
to help
will we
put
have
the
an
tires
employee
in.
here, or are they gonna be volunteers? We'll have at least one.
EAC said that they were going to run the entire program, so we wouldn't have municipal employees assisting.
My understanding is this recycling company sends 2 employees with their trucks and they handle the loading.
That's part of the $400.
That's part of the $400.
So we don't need our guys staffing it.
Correct.
Well, if it's only $400, what are you asking Hellertown for?
I had sent out an email to the manager indicating whether or not they were going to contribute to part of it, and I had not heard back. So
Did you ask for like a specific amount, $200?
I was looking for half, yeah.
Because we help pay for the parade. It's only fair.
Yeah. Now, did you reach out to Upper Saucon?
Upper Saucon wasn't part of the
Because we've done
initial.
We've done recycling events.
We've done any recycling with them, yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't want to reach out for them for the tires?
They were
Or
not
EAC
part of,
did?
EAC, this was not part of, this wasn't brought and partnered with them.
By who
EAC.
decided? EAC decided not to
EAC.
partner with Upper Saucon. Okay, who probably could have paid their share, like they do with e-recycling. Or at least they're responsive.
Okay, I guess, are you done, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further comments. Victoria?
Just thanks to the EAC for putting this together.
Laura?
No, I don't have any additional comment.
Okay, okay, that's your turn now.
Dave Boulan. So the bottom line is, I spoke to this previously, and I thought the price was going to be $150. Now it's ballooned to $400. No, I'm not a very good actor like some of the others here. What I don't understand is, gee, you can take your own darn tires down. I'm talking about automobile tires. And somebody listed 3 or 4 places that would take them for $5. All right? Now, I'd like to have, and I know it, somehow I just get the feeling I'm going to get pushback from the EAC because it's so heavy to do it. But what I'd asked about before and just sort of got yawns is, hey, can you keep track of who has tires over standard size? We can have a lot of farmers from all over the place bringing huge tractor tires because there was going to be an increased price for that. There are going to be different prices. I have no idea if all that stuff's gone out the window because now it's going to be $400. I'd like to know what towns. Are they all coming from Hellertown? Or is this just people that dump up there on Apple Butter Road or whatever it is when all of a sudden the hue and cry goes out, we've got a terrible tire problem, and all of a sudden a stack of tires show up? As I said at that time, that's a police problem. People want to dump their garbage all over. That's a police problem. Why am I paying for other people's faults when I take my tires and get them fixed? I pay them to take the used tires. Now, what you guys are saying is, hey, there's a criminal out there dumping tires around. We're going to pay for it. That's just wonderful. Thanks. I really appreciate paying for somebody else's garbage when all the EAC wants to beat their chest and can't seem to want to do anything. We don't want to run it. We don't want to do it. We just want to make up really nice looking brochures and colors and all and save the planets. And here's what we're doing. And by the way, now taxpayers, it's going to cost you $400. But we think we have a couple of people. We have some people. You know, there you go. There's good step right toward, keep on paying for everything. All the mistakes that mistakes, right? Breaking the law that everybody else does. And the new council here, who's in the majority, just says, yep, let's just do it. We'll just spend some more money. We won't do the right things. We won't have the police look into it. We won't try to catch them and stop it because after tires, God only knows what they're going to dump next. Cars, you name it. Just keep on going. You'll fix it. Sure you will. Boy, we've heard that line before. You elect me and I'll fix it. Yeah, fix it.
Okay, anybody else like to speak?
Mr. Goodseasian, the township taxpayers are paying you $180 an hour. Can you please Pay attention. You're on your phone.
Robert Blasco, Lower Saucon Township resident. People like to talk about calling the police to come and pick up these tires. The police need evidence. If you don't actually see them, get a recording of them, pictures, etc., all the police in the world can't do a thing about it. This I know for a fact because on my property with people dumping, I've had to put up game cameras, I've had to buy rechargeable batteries, I've had to get lock boxes for the cameras so that the guys that are dumping the tires don't turn around and steal the cameras on top. I probably got $1,000 wrapped up into this. So for somebody, anybody to stand and say the police need to investigate, they'll come and say, where's the evidence? I don't have any evidence. I can't do anything about it.
Okay, thank you. Good point. Okay, anybody else like to speak on this? Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Benonis?
No, pay your $5 to get rid of your own tires.
Ms. Altough Cordero?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
No.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have miscellaneous business items. The July 24th, 2024 council minutes are ready for council's review and approval. I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Jason?
I was not participating in that meeting, so I have no comments about it, and I will refrain from voting on it.
Tom?
They're inaccurate. Even there was quotes in Lehigh Valley News and other sites that had direct quotes from people that don't appear in the minutes. They're inaccurate.
Okay, I have nothing else to comment on. Victoria?
No.
Laura?
Yeah, no comments.
Okay, anybody in the audience like to speak on the minutes?
Just a question about Dave Boulan. Just a question about how the automated system's coming. I'd made some requests that it'd be nice to have the minutes of this meeting, for instance, at the next meeting. Okay, so it'd be a 2-week thing. I know it's in the process, but I was wondering if we could have just a brief update on how the automatic recognition is going.
The system is going well. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to go through the minutes when there are 3 or more people talking to make sure that they're correct.
I have a solution for that, but probably not acceptable. I'd get voted down. Thank you. When do you have an estimated time to install the traps in the floor to release those that are out of line talking? Yeah, okay. She gets it. You look awful serious, Mr. Caduzian. That was not a threat.
Anybody else? A roll call, please.
Ms. Altough Cordero?
Yes.
Mr. Caroci?
No.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Abstain, I was not here.
Motion passes 3-1, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Acting Township Manager Kathy Gorman for report.
I'd like to report that currently Public Works is doing their 2024 paving project for the year. Please be aware that they're out on the road and take any necessary precautions while driving. The Cherrywood project is not completely finished, but they are on the tail end of things. And we will be doing a final walkthrough and inspection when they indicate that they're done. The Town Hall Park Playground, the smaller end unit, won't be finished construction probably until the end of the month. The borders that were ordered after council approval, we ordered them the day after, and they indicated that we're not going to get them until about the 27th. We did receive the funding from the Northampton-Lehigh County grant application for the Eastern Road Ball Field for $114,000, I believe it was. So that will be going back into the park capital fund. I attended the Northampton County Council of Government meeting today. They had updates on several things. They requested the municipalities to promote the digital device training program that will be held at Northampton County Community College Fowler Center on September 24th from 5 to 7. And we will also on our website provide some contact information for Northampton County's Access Device and Giveaway Program, where they restore refurbished computer equipment for those who are disadvantaged. Northampton County will be holding their 5th annual Northampton County Festival on October 12th from 11 to 5. And the Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation is accepting registrations for their Tech and Talent for tomorrow's Lehigh Valley on October 10th, 2024 at 4:30 at the Da Vinci Science Center. And again, from the last meeting, I'd like to update again that the junior council people, if they're interested, deadline is September 6th. The electronics recycling event is scheduled for September 28th. The tire recycling program event is the September 14th from 9 a.m. to noon. And the fall cleanup, the Bethlehem landfill is scheduled for October 5th in the morning, same hours. All of that information will be out on a newsletter, which is going out, I believe, this week. So
Okay, great.
that's all I have.
Were you gonna talk on the RNG plant? The 2 letters we got?
We did get some, 2 letters from, one letter from AREA and 1 letter from DEP regarding their submission for some plan changes. There's a 30-day comment period on the one. I did speak with the engineer, he's not here. We will have that comment period on the next agenda for council to consider, and I will let DEP and AREA know that there may be a request from council in that, or a comment from council within that 30-day period. But we'll get it out to them as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. I guess council, Laura?
I never go first.
I thought Jay was going in alphabetical order.
That's crazy.
In alphabetical order like we do for
I'm running the meeting, I can do what I want.
So, actually, so Kathy did mention a few of the recycling events. There's one other one, I don't think she mentioned, the county is also doing a hazardous waste recycling. It happens to be on September 28th. I don't recall the hours, but they're pretty long, like 9 to 2, 9 to 3. If you go onto the county's website and do a search on hazardous waste, you ought to be able to get to the location through Eventbrite that you can make your reservation for your time slot. So you have to be registered in advance before you go there, but they accept all kinds of materials. So they have that all listed out, what they'll take. So it's a good opportunity to clean out your garage and basement and get rid of some hazardous chemicals. Also, I'll bring up that I did have a resident ask me some questions about the school zone on Polk Valley Road not having the blinking light signs and questioned why. So I actually didn't have any answer. I did email into Kathy and Chief Barnt to ask, why is our school district different? And learned that this is regulated by PennDOT, and they feel that it probably, whenever those signs got put in, it wasn't required based on the amount of traffic. So I don't know if that is something we could write to PennDOT about to find out if they'd relook at that, because I never really thought of it, but it's true that the hours, there's like 3 or 4 different time slots of hours along Polk Valley, along those signs there of when it's slow down, don't slow down. And Polk Valley Road, I think the speed limit's 40 miles an hour through there. So if you're not paying attention, you could easily be in one of those time slots and not really even know it, especially if you don't have kids in school, you're not really even thinking, you might not even know it's a school campus there. So maybe if we could find out from PennDOT if, you know, whatever, how they evaluate that, if they maybe want to look at that again.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Solid request.
Yeah, so we have a $114,000 windfall from this grant we got. Let's put in some showers and maybe a sauna, steam room, everything else out there at the bathrooms. Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to point out that we received a letter dated August 29th, 2024 from the City of Bethlehem Department of Water and Sewer Resources. And that letter was addressed to Kathy Gorman. And this was in response to a request that Kathy had sent on July 29th, requesting a copy of the industrial waste discharge permit that allows the Bethlehem Landfill Company to send leachate to the Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant, and a copy of the PFAS report provided with the application. And the city complied, and they provided a copy of this IWDP permit that was issued by the city of the landfill. This was on June 26, 2024. Permits are updated and renewed every 3 to 5 years. And one of the requirements is that the permittee, i.e. the landfill, shall include all lab analysis of PFAS samples collected at the influent and effluent of the PFAS pretreatment systems. And this shall be reported with the semi-annual discharge monitoring report, and also goes on to talk about Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection permitting that was in place. And apparently, City of Bethlehem found that the information that was provided by the landfill in support of their request for the industrial waste discharge permit was sufficient, and that it's safe, that there aren't any issues there, and they continue to monitor it. So all this boogeyman hysteria that's created by the 3 ladies on this council about the landfill doesn't seem to be borne out by the City of Bethlehem, which receives the effluent from the landfill. So congratulations to the landfill on that, and for running operations that are at least meeting the requirements of City of Bethlehem as well as DEP. I see that we have Mary Ann Garber is here, attorney for the landfill, and I have a letter that I had received from her. This was on May 30th, 2024, addressed to me, sent to me by express and certified mail, and it was a subpoena to attend and testify at a hearing that was scheduled for June 13th, 2024. I was being subpoenaed because of my position here on council, and I was being asked to testify at this hearing where the landfill and township were involved. And that hearing apparently was canceled, but what came with that letter was a check in the amount of $6.96 for my witness fee and mileage. That's pursuant to the rules of civil procedure as to paying people to come and testify. It's a reimbursement, $6.96. I don't know how long I would have been there, but I'm putting on the record right now that I'm returning this letter and the uncashed check. I'm giving this, handing this to Mary Ann Garber right now. And let the minutes reflect that I handed and the video will reflect that I handed that letter and the uncashed check to Mary Ann Garber. And I still have not accepted anything of value from the landfill, despite what Victoria Optoff has offered in defamatory comments that we've taken $75,000 from the landfill. I haven't accepted a dime from the landfill. There's more proof of it. Something that came up to me, and I would like township manager and engineer to look into this, maybe the solicitor, is my understanding is that when Steel City was originally laid out as a community, that the documents that provided for the laying out of the community provided for paper streets within Steel City. And the documents laying out that development provided that within a certain number of years, if those paper streets were not taken by the township and used by the township, then the property owners had the right to have those paper roads revert back to their parcels. Steel City's been around for a long time. I would expect, if that's accurate, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, But I would expect that if that is accurate, that the time period for those paper streets to have been taken by the township and revert back to the property owners has passed. And I would ask that township staff look into those documents to see if in fact the information that was provided to me is accurate. And if it is accurate, I'm going to suggest that we put on the agenda for either the next council meeting or the first meeting in October, October 18th or October 2nd, a discussion and possible action on the provisions of those documents, and in particular, giving those pieces of parcel back to each of the property owners in Steel City to add to the contiguous borders of their properties. There's no reason to continue to have the township possess those paper streets. We're not using them. I believe our right to use them has passed. And I think that it's only fair to give that land back to the residents of Steel City to add to the footprint of their properties. And in addition to that, I don't think it's fair to burden the residents of Steel City with any legal cost that would be required to file amended deeds or anything else to reflect the transfer of that. So I would ask that we would also explore what steps are needed so that we can identify what the township may need to do at the township's sole cost and expense, not at the residents of Steel City's cost and expense, to make that happen. I think that's a sensible thing to do. Priscilla, you've lived there for a long time. I don't know if you have information on this. If you do, I don't know why you haven't taken steps to advance this forward to give people more property. But you know, we've done a lot on this council for Steel City. We've paved the roads. We've addressed the fire services. We've improved and increased the park facilities, and now we've moved the landfill active operations away from Steel City and capped the parts of the landfill that are closest to Steel City. And now what I'm proposing is that we give residents of Steel City more land. I don't know how receptive people in Steel City are going to be to that, but I think it's the right thing to do. And if they can't see that we've done a lot for them, then that's their problem. So I would ask for that. I don't know. I don't think I need to make a motion for that, do I? Do I need to make a motion for that, Steve?
To explore it?
Yeah.
You can ask the manager to explore it.
Yeah, thank you. And then the last thing I have is I have a question on the new manager. There were efforts made at the last council meeting to hire a new manager, and hire him promptly. He's obviously not here. Is he coming? Has he backed out like the other township man, the other guy that was supposedly hired who said he's never coming?
Do you want me?
Yeah.
You want me to address that?
Yeah, if you would. I know you, so just so the public is aware, Mr. Gutsuzian shared a letter with us, I believe it was yesterday, that he was waiting for the background report to come in, and he had not received that. So that's all that I know. Is that accurate?
Partially.
Okay.
What I can report back without providing any confidential information is the township manager signed the necessary documentation. As you may recall, the motion was to have him hired subject to a background search, or background check rather. The background check took place. I received a preliminary indication as to what the background check was. I communicated that to members of council. I have not received the formal report from the individual who's done the background check, and that's what we're waiting for.
Okay.
That's where we are.
All right, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, I have nothing. Victoria?
Yeah, just a couple things. I wanted to say, I don't think I had the opportunity last time, or I did, but I didn't say it last time. We were very late into the evening when we got to council reports, but I wanted to say thank you to the staff and to the police, fire, rescue, EMS for the wonderful National Night Out. I thought it was a great event, and especially since it was moved because of the weather, it went off really nicely. And it was a pleasure to see everybody, community coming together and having a great time. So I wanted to say thank you. I didn't say it last time. The other thing I wanted to comment on, it's coming up in October, but I thought it was a really nice thing to talk about. The first Wednesday in October is National Coffee with a Cop Day. And our police department is partnering with Giant Food Store on Wednesday, October 2nd to bring our first ever National Coffee with a Cup and Touch a Truck. So the police are partnering with our fire department, and they are going to be doing an event with vehicles and community engagement. And that will be on, sorry, I'm looking at the flyer that hopefully our township has shared, but it's 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You bring the whole family, you go to the Giant, and it's a wonderful event to mingle with our fire and our police and see all the trucks that they have. So I just wanted to highlight that. Fire services is moving along nicely. We've had, as we indicated last time, a couple surveys go out to council and staff and fire company respectively. And so we're looking forward to reviewing that information shortly with our consultant on the fire services end. If anybody didn't know, the Water Authority, they have their own separate meetings. They meet once a month. But it's important for everybody to know that they're working on a very big project right now. You may know about it, but I just wanted to give an update that it seems to be going along very, very nicely. They're putting in the pumper station that will be down near the Giant at that intersection with the light, close to that in the Meadows Road Bridge. But they've started with that whole project to put in that pumper there for our sewer. So I just wanted to give everybody an update. They do have their own meetings, so please attend if you are interested in finding out about that information. With respect to the Bethlehem City letter that we received August 29th, I think it's very nice that we received the letter. That was in response to our proactive efforts in obtaining information on the PFAS reporting. And it looks like the city of Bethlehem will be providing the information to us once they start receiving the reports because of the signing of their new industrial waste permit. They haven't received any of the PFAS reports yet, but they will be getting it twice a year. So I look forward to receiving those reports, and I think it's great that we can collaborate with the city of Bethlehem and get that information. And there is some other information in there, at least at the initial phase of getting the PFAS facility up and running. So I think we'll have to address that in the future. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
All right, so what Victoria didn't tell you is I talked to Bill Ross the other day, our water authority director, and the pump station will not be online until 2026. So I wouldn't say they're moving quickly with that project. Of course, she failed to mention that. We adjusted some salaries for Kathy and some other employees when we didn't have a township manager. Now we're gonna have one for 20 hours a week, someone who lives in Delaware. Apparently he's gonna come here for 20 hours a week. Maybe he's gonna work from home 20 hours a week. We don't really know. You know, what's gonna happen to their salaries? It seems like they should still deserve to be paid more on the adjusted salaries because apparently we hired a part-time township manager. The majority of council saw fit to hire a part-time township manager. So what's happening with that? Kathy, Priscilla, Steve? I mean, are you gonna cut them back because we have a township? Was that adjustment just until we had a township manager? Does this qualify that we have this part-time township manager?
I don't remember exact motion, but I think it was till we hired a manager.
I believe the motion, and I have to go back and check, but I do believe that it was that the stipends would end when a manager was hired.
Right.
Well, is a manager hired if he's a part-time manager living in Delaware and they still have extra work to do because he's part-time and living in Delaware? Shouldn't they have the adjusted salary during the part-time?
I think we need to look at that on a future agenda when we find out when his starting date was, because there was different
He's not
things.
official yet, because we haven't gotten the official word, but
Let's
I'm
put it on the next
certainly open
agenda.
to it. Absolutely.
What if he starts before the next meeting?
We could still we still have to address it at the next council meeting regardless.
Okay.
because.
Well, I hope we're not gonna, cut those salaries back when they're still doing extra work because you hired a part-time manager that lives out of state. And now
He's
it's
not a
September. I didn't ask you for a comment. It's my turn to comment, so be quiet. Be quiet.
I'm just
Be quiet.
correcting the
Be
information.
Be quiet.
You
I
keep on
didn't interrupt you.
repeating
I
it,
let
keep
you
on
speak.
referring to
I
the
let you
manager
speak.
as a part-time manager. That's not what the offer was. The offer was that he would work 20 hours a week for 45 days, and at which time it's expected he will be a full-time manager. So for any clarification for the public, if you're concerned, you keep on hearing he's a part-time this, part-time that. He is not anticipated to be any part-time manager. He will be a full-time manager as far as it's what the offer was for.
For 40.
Hiring, because I'd like to work half the time and get the full pay, if that's what you're suggesting. Is that
No,
what's
he's
happening?
20 hours for, I mean, you guys, if you came to the meetings and
I was
you
there.
participated, you would know what the offer letter said.
I do.
But for the public's benefit, because we keep on hearing a lot of
But you're
hot
telling the
air
public
about what he is or what he isn't.
There's no.
But he's not, he's working 20 hours.
A week for
This is my
45
time.
days.
This is my time.
And then he is expected to be
Expected.
full-time.
Right, expected,
So
not
that's
required.
what the offer was.
Right, he's
And,
expected.
it's my understanding, the letter spoke for itself, he's going to be full-time. So for those that are in the audience, you hear that information, it's not accurate. He's full-time.
What she said is exactly accurate. He's expected to be full-time after 45 days,
you.
not required,
one at a
not
time.
required.
He's not a
Not
part-time manager.
required, not
Turning off the
required,
mic.
not required to be full-time after 45 days. It's an expectation of the majority. They had an expectation of hiring a previous manager. But let's talk about, we'll talk about the council, it's now September, they've been there for 9 months. They promised you they were gonna defeat a cell phone tower. That's not gonna happen. They promised you they were gonna cut the number of trucks that drop at the landfill on a daily basis. That hasn't happened. They promised you they were gonna stop out-of-state trash from coming to the landfill. That hasn't happened. They said that they were going to stop odors from the landfill. The DEP's basically said the odor's coming from the Bethlehem waste treatment facility. So, we have a lot of they said they weren't going to raise taxes. They raised the fire tax, and they raised the income tax. Be careful what these ladies say. They're liars, and be careful what they say. Listen very closely. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, I would just like to say that not everything he said is true.
I thought you said you had no comments.
I changed my mind and I'm running the meeting, okay? So if you don't like it, what can I say?
You had no comments.
I do have comments. So with that, solicitor?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Engineer's not here. Public comment, non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on a non-agenda item?
I don't know. Mr. Caroci.
Address the chair, please. Address the chair.
And my understanding about this manager is you're going to pay him $155K a year, and for that he's going to work 45 days for 20 hours a week. Well, that's pretty handsome pay for a 20-hour-a-week job at that rate. All right, public, you do the math. I can see there's a particular
the salary's being prorated for
her
that
head.
time.
And I'm sorry I'm talking, and you're talking over me again, Miss Tire salesperson, all right? So I don't appreciate that at all either. And I do agree there was somebody who did stand here and I said something to him and he corrected me and he was right. I don't know if he's here or not. Shouldn't turn around regardless. All right. Lost the thought on that one. We still have 2 minutes. Let's see if I can bring it up again. I don't know. I think we got through most of it. Was something the idea that, yes, you are indeed the president. You can do what you want. Yes, well, that's called dictatorships. And I don't appreciate that, okay? Even if you said it in fun, it's not something that this council and this group here of attendees like to hear, it's already contentious enough, okay? Yeah, you do pretty much do exactly what you want and get exactly what you want, and you will live with that. And yes, there's plenty of evidence about what was said and what actually is. And we'll see that, just like the past manager who didn't work in, come on, you know where it is. He worked in New Jersey.
He resided in East Stroudsburg.
And he worked in New Jersey.
Where is he from?
Worked in
When somebody asks
Washington,
me
New
where
Jersey.
somebody's
I'm
from,
sorry, I'm talking now.
asked a question.
You're not on the key here, okay? Bottom line is he was working as a town manager in Washington, New Jersey, Warren County, not where you said he was in East Stroudsburg, okay? It's not okay? Well, okay. Do you want me to get a statement from him? And he didn't take the job, and we weren't notified. Very.
Smart guy.
What I'd like to
He's a smart
respond
guy.
to that is when somebody asked where he was from, and they said East Stroudsburg, and we said, yeah, that's where he lived. He was from there. He didn't say where he worked.
No, you didn't know.
I knew. I read his resume. Interviewed him.
Right. Well, you didn't do a very good job because where did you interview
We
him?
didn't do it because we weren't given any resumes.
But you didn't
So how could we interview? We got no
Did you
resumes.
get his resume?
We were
You didn't
totally
come to
excluded
any
from
of
the
the
process.
interview or
I
come to any
asked for
meetings to a point.
resumes.
You had a resume. You had it.
6
You didn't
seconds
show
and
up.
I can't talk. That's the kind of
up.
show you run, and that's why people get so mad, because you are a dictator.
I'm never going to answer another question of yours.
You haven't answered most of them. Oh, are you kidding me?
So lucky. Consider
Are you
yourself lucky.
kidding? Boy, there's
a woman's
another
privilege.
fabrication.
Fine.
You just sit there and smile like you are now. I can always tell Victoria when she's bending the truth. I'll be nice, okay? And then all of a sudden, there she is right there. She breaks out into the giggles like somebody else we know that's running for high office. I'm done. Congratulations, 10 o'clock on just a few items.
Okay, anybody else from the audience like to speak after that?
Robert Blasco, 2510 Reddington Road, Lower Saucon Township resident. I get tired of coming to this podium and stating something and Mr. Bononis twisting it. I'll give you one example that sticks out. I have pictures to prove it. I came to this podium a couple months ago saying that one of our park and rec meetings, one of the gentlemen had stopped by the ballpark and he came to the meeting and said that there may be additional cost with installing the netting pools. Bononis sat there and he said, the lighting poles are already installed. Brian, aren't the lighting poles already installed? Well, he was correct. The lighting poles were already installed, but I have pictures of several days later when the netting pools, which is what I was talking about, were still not installed. And he sat there and told me, called me out and said, I'm getting tired of people coming to this podium that don't know what they're talking about. I have pictures to prove what I said. Let's see the pictures to prove that the netting poles were not installed at that point. Mr. Belan just came and apologized for misbehaving while I was trying to speak. I don't think it was really because he was sorry. I think it was mostly because he's been warned not to display any more antagonistic behavior towards either my wife or myself. And as Mr. Carochi likes to sit there when he talks about Mark Ozimek and say it's a matter of public record, what I just stated is a matter of police record. He stands here and makes comments, well, I'm not going to threaten to punch anybody in the face, yet his actions are otherwise. And there are police reports on that.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody else? If not, do we have a motion for adjournment? Oh, by the way, the record should reflect that at 9:54, Mr. Caroci and Mr. Bononis left the meeting.
Can I make one point of clarification?
Absolutely.
Before? So, as I tried to state when the resident was talking, the salary for the manager is going to be prorated during the period that he is working the 20 hours during the first up to 45 days, and that is in the job offer. So to say otherwise, which is what was said, is untrue.
Right, just like when I was asked about where did he reside, or where was he from, I said East Stroudsburg, because to me, being from somewhere is where you live, not where you work. Work is New Jersey, just to repeat myself. Anybody else like to add something, before we adjourn?
No, I appreciate that everybody's here this evening for the full.
Everybody what?
Everybody here is here for the full length of the meeting.
Yes, yes, and we have smiles on our faces. So, is there a motion for adjournment?
The motion to adjourn.
Okay, Laura, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Victoria, and I guess roll call.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Ms. Zapata Cordero?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I'm glad, did we say the time? We didn't say the time. It is I don't know, one clock says 9:58 and the other one says 10. Which one should we use?
9:59.
9:59.
Well, just turned 10.
Okay. So the meeting's off, right? Right.